Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the July 28th, 2026 meeting of the La Habra Heights Planning Commission to order. I'll start with roll call. Laura Hess.
Here.
Stephen Blagden.
Here.
Rick Brooks.
Here.
Jim Lucas.
Here.
Peter Espinoza, absent. And Ray Fernandez, the chair, is here. Please stand and let's do the flag salute. Where do you begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item number 4, public comment. I have a card from Mr. Steve Rajic. Would you come up, please?
So you might want to say for the record, Mr. Espinoza is here.
What's that?
You might, for the record, say Mr. Espinoza.
Oh, hi, Peter.
Oh, yes, and Mr. Espinoza is here now. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. I believe my garage project at 854 Reposado is on the agenda tonight, and I know that there's going to be some serious questions, but I probably made a mistake and didn't hire an architect that's familiar with the standards up here, and he didn't really do his due diligence, and we're probably going to have to make quite a few changes, and I don't know if you guys want to go over it tonight or wait till we submit changes. What do you guys think?
Okay, well, we can't get really into back and forth, but it is, your project is on the agenda, and we can discuss it. And maybe I can give you an opportunity at that time, if you fill out a card and you want to discuss that at the time.
Okay.
And give us your ideas, and we
All
can
right.
do that.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. No other cards, Christina? Anybody? Okay. All right, we're going to move things around a little bit. As you all know, I've been pushing to get the city to enact a permitting streamlining process, an online process, and I've been talking to a very nice and intelligent lady, Kate Wandler from Clarity, and they're on the East Coast, so it's late for them, so I'm going to move them up ahead of the consent calendar. They're going to make a presentation to us, and after the presentation, if you have any questions, let's let her get through the presentation. And I believe there's someone else going to be on the call with her. The gentleman's name escapes me now, but if we can go, Kate, can you hear us okay?
We can hear you. It's a little bit muffled, so perhaps for questions, would you be able to please put them in the chat so there's no miscommunication?
Okay. Yeah, I'm right up to the microphone, so if you can't understand me, it's probably my Cuban accent, so I don't know. Can anybody else try? Laura, can you speak?
Hi, this is Laura Hess. Can you hear me? This is the
No,
test.
you must
here.
mute it.
Is it my time to present?
Yes, go ahead.
How are they,
All right.
Oh, excuse me a minute.
how are they listening in? Is it a Zoom call? Because maybe if they go to the online meeting,
It's a Zoom call, right?
you
Yeah.
might get better sound through the city website.
There's a bit of a delay on the website, but Grace is
It is a
looking
Zoom call.
Yeah, Zoom call. Grace is looking at the back and forth, but we can hear you guys loud and clear. So if you'd like to go through your presentation, we'll work on the audio so you have better sound on your end.
Good. Well, let's start. I know I have about 15 minutes. This could be the fastest demonstration I've ever done, but I certainly appreciate the the chance to share Clarity with you guys and speak to some of the benefits we can bring a city like La Habra Heights. First off, I wanted just to indicate for the city what is included in our service. We have a single service that offers permitting for building, planning and zoning, special events, as well as licensing. So things like business licensing, contractor licensing, as well as code enforcement, an inspection app for your inspectors and code enforcement officers in the field, as well as a public-facing map for your residents so they can see in real time what's happening in the city. But the nice thing is this is all integrated into a single solution for all of you. I also wanted to share some additional benefits for those of you that know permit systems. Clarity offers a unique experience for your applicants because we can also generate what we call a guide, which answers residents' questions even before they're ready to apply for a permit or license. So this can, especially for a city the size of La Habra Heights, can greatly reduce those calls for people that just have questions and aren't ready to apply at this point. Now they can answer their own questions. We do that by bringing in the city's GIS layers, so things like the city limits, to be able to identify people that are trying to apply for permits outside the city and nicely telling them to not, as well as identifying flood zone layers, historic districts, and even bringing in parcel layers to identify the zoning of each individual parcel. And by asking the residents some simple questions about their projects, we can generate a guide and provide them with just the information that's been customized to their specific parcel and zoning and their specific project. We're also improving communications with the city. With our permit system, we'll be updating the applicant as the permit or license moves through the approval process. So they'll be updated just as you're updated. And so reducing that kind of frustration and calls into the city for updates. We also, our system also offers you a system that has no coding into it. And for those that know other permit systems, a lot of them have a lot of coding and require outside consultants to even make small changes. With Clarity, we can train specific individuals within the city that can make those changes for the city with no delay and no cost. We also are offering a new piece of innovation that we call Community Template that we found has been really helpful for cities like yours that would be potentially rolling out a new electronic permit system. This would allow all the various departments to be able to see how other cities across the country have rolled out their various permit licensing and code enforcement processes. You can use it as an educational purposes, or if you like the process that has already been set up, you can clone it, make it your own, and we can work to configure it to your exact needs at that point. So for the demonstration, first off, Clarity is a 100% hosted solution. So for the IT staff, there is no hardware or software that needs to be maintained or updated. The biggest thing they would need to do is to put a button on your website to bring your residents to Clarity. And if they did click on it, they would come to a landing page much like this. Important to note, though, even this page within our system can be configured. So if the city calls it different things or maybe doesn't have an economic development business assistance program, you can configure it to your exact needs. As the resident clicks in, you can see we're sharing and trying to set up headings and subheadings to make it easy for the applicant to find their work. In this example, we'll say it's a new accessory structure, and we'll say at the end of the day, it is a guest house. You can see for clarity, after they confirm and continue, now Clarity is asking for their address or their parcel number. For your residents, they can enter their address, and Clarity will bring up a map and highlight their parcel within the city. And really, for your residents, all we're looking for them to do is to say, yes, this is my address. Now Clarity knows a lot about this parcel. We know the zoning, if we brought that GIS information, whether they're in a flood zone or historic district, etc. And now we ask those simple questions. You know, items like, what's the square footage of your structure, which they can include, the number of stories, will the wall height exceed 10 feet? All your questions can have a I'm not sure how to answer this button. So if your resident is unsure, you can set up additional clarifying information so that they can get a better understanding and continue to answer. Important to note, even here, these questions are configured by you. You know, you tell us the questions that you want to ask, and we set them up for you. Your answers can be a date, or even be a multiple choice type option, like where will the structure be in relationship to the house? Do you have flood insurance? This question was added because this parcel is in a flood zone. So we're asking an additional question of, do you have flood insurance? And then will you be adding 1,000 square feet of impervious surface? Final questions, the number of structures and the project's valuation. And in generating this now, we have our guide. And so the guide can be informational, as well as laying out the various forms and fees and documents that are required. But now your resident can see all this information. They don't need to apply. But when it's time, as you can see, it's very simple to come in. And in the example of a plot plan, you can detail the size and format, and they can simply drag and drop it in and include that document within your application. Even all the way down to fees, they can see what the fees are going to be and pay those fees online with an electronic payment provider. All very easy for them to be able to either gather their own information before they're ready or apply for a permit or license. On the back end of the system now, your city personnel can see all the submissions that are coming in, and they can open them up and view them, and they can see the same information that your applicants can see. So if there was a question here on setback information, they can see the setback information that was shared. They could even see a question potentially that the application is asked and how it's been answered and who answered it, allowing everything to stay consistent within the application. As they go through this now, we also have a workflow engine over here on the left to allow your residents to allow the city to be able to very easily create and modify, if you want, with simple drag and drop, a workflow of how this application is approved within the city. Giving them the ability now, as we go into this application, to be able to update the status and generate and go through those various workflow processes. Within the application now, we also have plan review steps that you can go through, integrating with electronic plan review software if you wish, or even free items like Adobe. And for the city now, you can see on the building review that it was completed, as well as who completed it. So going through this entire process, everyone within the city is up to date. They can see in this example, the permit placard that was submitted for this application, and certain people even have the ability to void it out. The next powerful piece is the ability to report on all this information. Now we have everything in a single location, and Clarity gives each individual city employee the ability to determine what columns they want in their report, but also we give them the ability to slice and dice this information. So if we wanted to look over permits that were just generated over the last month, we could filter that down, and even filter down by submission types, looking at just residential building projects. When we're done and we've created the report that we want to generate, it can easily be exported and sent off to council or wherever it needs to go. But we also can allow these reports to be saved. So the city council report can be generated on a weekly or monthly basis with a click of the button after it's been set up once in that way. Clarity also has an active map internally where the city can see all the permits and licensing that has happened. And again, be able to filter that information down, just looking at permits over the last month, being able to click on a specific permit and see the basic details. And if needed, you can click on it and go in and see the entire permit itself. But Clarity also gives the city a real-time map that can be embedded on your website to share with your residents. Yellow are code violations throughout the city, and blue are permits and licenses. So now your residents can select a specific one and view a lot of information on this specific permit. They can view the location, the documents that were included, the status of the permit, inspections and where they're at, as well as reviews or even fees that were paid. But just as importantly, the city has the ability to hide some of this information if you're not comfortable sharing it all with the public. So giving you guys the ability to be very transparent in that way. Lastly, I just wanted to share on this individual permit, the ability for the city now to see, basic information on the permit, but also to be able to see other submissions at this location. So these would be permits or licenses that have been applied for at this location, or code violations at this location as well. So everything's integrated together. Now, instead of separate pieces of paper floating around, everyone can see and pull from this data here available. Clarity also, lastly, keeps all of your financial information together, and all this data can be easily reported on and exported out into your financial system as well in one fell swoop. And that is the end of my very quick demonstration, unless there's any questions.
I'll just touch on as well, just before we take questions, that I know Ray had mentioned that you guys are really keen to know kind of what the implementation process would be. And I just want to give you a heads up that basically how it works is we work with you and the team to get everything set up. As Dave showed, we have something called community templates. So depending on what your processes look like, we can, kind of look at some of the surrounding communities and copy and then adjust them to your liking, which speeds things up a lot. Or we can help you build them from scratch, but those two things will kind of determine how long it takes to implement. And also, we'll meet with you, a couple times a week until you guys are trained up and ready to go. And it can really move as quickly or as slowly as you need it to go. If you have, time from your staff to really be able to get this done ASAP, we can work with you on that. If you like to move a little bit slower and test everything at your own pace, we're happy to do that as well. I know implementations can be a bit scary, and I won't lie that it's definitely a lot of work on both ends to get it live, but it'll save so much time in the long run, and it's very easy to maintain once it's implemented. All right, we're ready for questions.
I'll start. Can you hear me now? Hello?
We can mostly hear you. Like I said, it's a little muffled. So Christina, I might ask you to type it in the chat if we're unable to understand the question, but let's give it a try.
How about if I go to that mic? Okay. My question is, can you get into how people apply for permits, electrical, building permits, and also, remember we talked about that you would have a guide to tell people what they needed to submit so that it would be a complete application. That seems sometimes a stumbling block here because people don't submit all the required papers and documentation. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We can, like we showed earlier, one of the other nice things, which I didn't touch on, is right up here at the top. Each of your applicants will have a dashboard. This could be really effective for contractors that might have multiple permits within the city. And as you can see, they can see the various statuses of their different permits that they've applied for potentially within the city. If we, as an example here, which one will I pick here? I guess I'll pick this one here. We can jump right in, and Clarity, to your point of the guide, correct. Clarity can share. Santa Clarita, California, built a great guide system to be very informational, right? To share a lot of information. They even go as far as tips for hiring a designer and questions to ask a designer. Other cities say, well, we wouldn't share that information, and that's fine. So, but right, for the specific parcel, if there a lot of contractors might jump into Clarity just because they want to know the setback for this specific parcel, right? So they put in the address, type of permit, and they get their setback information, and they go off and do their work. Same thing with an electrical permit, maybe potentially based on the zoning of the specific parcel. There might be some changes in what's required for an electrical permit. If there's not, we can lay out the various steps, and you can see here things like the application itself can be set up, and with a form builder on what they need to add in, and also you can dictate what documents need to be applied for. Sometimes cities may require for an electrical permit that the contractor includes a copy of his electric license, as an example, or his contractor number, or whatever it is. And so again, whatever the city requires, we can set this up to get that from the application, and then on the back end, build that workflow as to, when you get a completed application in, what steps do you need to go through to finally approve that? Important to note also, with our subscription, we allow for unlimited licenses, and also these licenses can be outside the city. So if you have potentially, outside plan reviewers, or maybe the county is responsible for health inspection, or whatever the instance is, they could also have a license and be brought into the workflow for steps through the workflow process.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Sure.
I'll start on the left, Mr. Lucas.
Sure. Thank you, Jim Lucas, and great presentation. I have 3 questions.
Sure.
So when you've implemented this with new cities, have most just kind of kept their legacy system in place, or have you integrated their history into your new system for permitting?
It's different. I think your question was, do some of them have a system and some of them don't? With us, right, it's a mixed bag. We meet up with a lot of customers that are dealing with paper today, and we bring them into the digital world, so to speak. One of the nice things is you will have an implementation manager. So as you let the implementation manager know what you're trying to build, they may know of another city that's built a system much like you're talking about, and they can share it with you, get your feedback about what you like or what you don't like, and build that for you. So it's kind of it's a weekly process of coming back, sharing what we've built, and getting feedback, and continuing to build further in that way. So some of our customers have a permit process, but it might be old, right? It might have been built 15 years ago with old technology, and now with Clarity and our new functionality, we can remove a lot of steps in the process. And so our implementation manager will work with you on that as well.
Okay, but I guess the question is, if you have an old system, can you somehow upload that data into your system, or you have to actually manually type it in?
Yes, we have a migration process. A lot of our customers have data that they brought in, or maybe digital data from another system. We have templates built out where we can associate various fields. So when we import that template in, it'll populate that historic data within the system.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sure.
Question 2, I guess, what types of efficiency gains have you seen from other cities? Just like a range. I'm sure there's a big difference by city, but what have you seen, or do you have data for that?
I didn't quite get that question. Do you hear that one, Kate?
I think he's asking what happens to his data, and if that's the question, then you guys own your data. If you're to leave Clarity, you can take that data with you. We won't hold it hostage or anything like that. Was that the question, or did I mishear?
No, a different question. So cities that have implemented your system, I guess, what types of efficiency gains from a workflow process have you seen?
Yeah, right. Not huge. That's a sales term. Large efficiencies, though. One big efficiency is a large reduction in calls into the permit center, because now residents can answer their own questions utilizing the guide. Also, with the guide, it's laying out only the information required based on their specific zoning and in conditions of their permit. And so the confusion that sometimes applicants have, I don't know what you need from me, now it's laid out for them. So it makes it very easy for them to do that. The other nice thing about this, the system on the back end, is with our workflow engines and having having that ability to build your own workflows, but also in your submission, now being able to see, actually, let me go down to a different one here. Actually being able to see as a group, what the status is. Okay, this was completed, but this fire review is still open. And also for each of your city employees, if they're assigned, a task within the system, part of the workflow, if they're assigned like David Marshall here was assigned this building review, everyone has their own inbox where all their tasks, in this example, all their incomplete tasks are laid out for them. When a task is assigned, that city employee will receive an email that they have a task, and there's a hyperlink included to the email that'll take them right in to be able to see that task that needs to be done. And so a lot of, and everyone can also see David Marshall was assigned that task. And even in an example, if I was given a week as an example to complete a task, as that week comes to a close, if I have not completed that task, Clarity reaches back out to me, reminding me of this task that I have still to do. With business licenses, and even with a permit that may expire after a certain amount of time, Clarity can also build a reminder. So as an example of a business license, instead of being forced to send out letters, your license needs to be renewed, now Clarity can automatically email the applicant and say, your business license is about to expire. If you wish to renew it, click here, and we'll set up the steps that they need to complete to renew their restaurant license or retail store license. And each of those might require different things, a health inspection, updated documentation, a fee, whatever. But all that's now happening automatically, and they're being reminded. Again, creating those efficiencies, not requiring you to do that as well. But yeah, we're seeing many times a 30% reduction in calls into the permit center, and much faster returns on the completion itself because everyone's on the same page now.
Great, thank you. And then last question, this is an easy one, I think. So for the other cities that you have your system in, you showed that one map that has like the residents that have open permits and the public can click on it. Like, yep. Do most cities make that available to their residents, or just some of them, or just curious? Yep.
Most do. In fact, most kind of require it, and they want to share it out there with their applicants. And like I said, this can be either embedded on your website, as a tool that can be shared. But again, when it comes to what information you share, if you don't want to share documents, if you just want to share the status that this application is in, maybe not inspections, that all can be on the back end kind of hidden, so to speak, in that way, even all the way down to fees in that example. If you don't want to share fees, those can be hidden as well. And I will say not everyone, it's not as important for everyone, but a lot of cities want to be transparent, but it also can alleviate some of those calls into the city. What's happening across my street? They can look it up themselves and find out what's happening.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Mr.
Sure.
Brooks?
Yes, thank you. So if with your system, is it AI driven, or do you have to list all the potential questions and answers as you're building your database for the residents to get started?
Yeah, great question. It is not AI. We do have an AI module for plan review that cities like Honolulu are getting a lot of benefits out of right now. But on the back end of our system, you kind of hit it on the head here where we come down here to our portal application rules. It kind of is a little like AI, but it's not AI. But what the system is doing is it's asking itself a series of questions. So as an example, it will say, is this address within the city limits of your GIS layer? Yes or no? If the answer is no, we'll tell them they're in the wrong place. But if the answer is yes, we'll continue. The system will ask itself, is this address in a flood zone layer from your GIS? Yes or no? If it's yes, there might be some additional steps they need to do because they're in a flood zone. If the answer is no, they don't have to do those steps. So to a degree, the system, and also you can see here on this, no coding aspect here, we can go into this guest house, which is what we were doing, and it's really just a bunch of rules on whether we use these steps on the right or not. And so you can see in the example here, will the wall height exceed 10 feet? Well, we can easily edit the conditions here. And so, but what we're saying is, here's the question. Will the wall height exceed 10 feet? The answer is a yes or no question, but it could also have been a number question. How tall is your fence? Or a multiple choice question like we saw. And we're going to include the steps if the answer is equal to yes. So we'll add additional steps if they say their wall height exceeds 10 feet, but we won't add those steps if their answer is no. So there's a little bit of, machine learning, but it's not, true AI. But we are giving you a system now that customizes each application based on their zoning and how they answered those questions within the system. And we work with you, to set these rules up within the system.
And to clarify where the questions come from, some of them come from the city. Some of them come from like the implementation manager's experience setting up similar processes. Like, for example, if you're setting up a guest house or a pool or whatever it might be, it's probably true that you're not the first city to ever have that process and have similar questions for that setup. So your implementation manager would bring some over and you would say, yep, those are all good. Oh, could you also add this one? Or no, we don't check for this one. And that's kind of where the information comes from, just to clarify.
Yep. The other nice thing about our system, and you see it on a lot of cities where they have a list of things that don't require a permit, right? And now with clarity, so as an example, in some cities, fences under 3 feet tall that do not require a permit. So if someone says, I'm applying for a fence permit, and we ask, how tall is your fence? And they say 2 feet tall, we'll just tell them there's no permit required. Have at it with your 2-foot fence. And so now that need for throwing all this information outside the permit system up isn't necessary, because we'll walk them through it if they get to that point.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Can a resident file a code complaint with your system?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. So they can file a code complaint and include their name, or file a code complaint anonymously if you want to give them that option. Some people like to be anonymous when they do this, right? And on that front end, you can, and the code enforcement team can detail out what information would you like from this individual that's making you aware of this code violation, but also, just as importantly, your code enforcement officers out in the field, again with their tablets or smartphones, can create a new code violation. If they identify one out in the field as well, they can create them out there and go that route.
Okay.
And fun fact is that our inspection app for building inspections, it works offline. So if you are doing an inspection in a house and let's say you go down to the basement, all of a sudden the service cuts out, you'll keep recording the data. You won't even notice that you're out of service, and the system will just upload everything automatically once you're back in cell service. That also works if you're like way out in the country. If I don't know what your guys' city limits are, but for example, if you're somewhere where there's no good cell service or Wi-Fi, it'll work there as well.
Yeah. And this just gives you, for all of you, gives you some screenshots from my iPad where your inspectors for the day could open up their iPad, see the inspections they have for the day and where they are in the city. They can select one and view it in more detail. You can see how they can reschedule the inspection, or they could go right down to the checklist in this example, where they can go through their checklist of inspections, passing or failing, but also being able to snap pictures using their smartphones or tablets, much like they would snap pictures today, opening up a camera or choosing from photos or files that they have on their tablet. But as Kate indicated, if they're down in a basement and they're out of coverage, they don't even know it because the system has stored their data and they just keep working. And when they do come back into coverage, it automatically would pull their data up into the cloud for them in that way. Yep.
Okay, so lastly, if we're building a house, there's several permits that you have, and with each permit, there's multiple inspections. Does the city have the ability for the building inspector, to upload all of the different steps in the inspection so that anyone can go and look? Well, when I say anyone, the applicant or the contractor or the city say, oh, this and this and this still needs to be signed off. Does it go into that layer of detail for an existing permit?
Yes, and so thank you for asking that. So in this project here, we have, as you can see here in this example, we have 3 inspections, and so you can build, how many inspections are required for this type of application, right? And in this one, it's a building inspection, a rough plumbing inspection, and a final inspection. And so in this example now, coming in, you can see that we have that checklist of steps they need to go through to complete this application. So if I wanted to, come in and complete it, in this example, I go step by step. Hey, these load-bearing members have to be grade stamped. Now, we also have a message template for your inspectors. So if there is terminology that they have to keep putting in over and over again, now for grade mark lumber, I just select and it populates that within this review. I can also, add additional comments as I see them. I can also, attach photographs as we talked about, and then up here, pass or fail that, and kind of go step by step through that review process until I am done. And at the end, when I mark this as complete, you can see I can, in this example, pass or fail it, and even these steps can be configured by the city. But I can also, if necessary, create a follow-up inspection, because if they failed, certainly I'll have to come back. But also, Clarity can generate an inspection report. And the inspection report can be something that's either left behind or emailed later that would include all the inspector's comments as well as the photos that he took on site, of that process there as well. So, but the neat thing for the applicant.
Okay, so I hate to interrupt
Yep.
you, but we're
Sure.
on kind of a time schedule, and there's other people that have questions. So
Sure.
perhaps you could keep
Sure.
your questions to, or your answers to the question.
Sure.
Anyway, but I'll close it with that, so that we have time for the other commissioners to ask questions. But thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Ms. Hess?
What is the initial startup cost and the ongoing expense?
Yeah, I guess in its implementation and training would be a one-time cost, and that would be based on the amount of permit, license, and code enforcement types that you want to build. To give you an idea, if it was under 40 permit, license, or application types, usually it would be around $16,000 to $17,000, and that would just pay for the implementation and the training one time. And the subscription, which would include permitting, licensing, and code enforcement, and the hosted solution and unlimited licenses, that would come out to be $24,150 a year for all of the items there that we've been speaking of.
For purposes of the Planning Commission, are there any reports that can be generated that would essentially summarize the project history for when projects land on our desk?
Yeah, and absolutely. So anything that's within the system can be reported on. Whether it be permits, licensing, whatever you want. You can also even report on the code violation side of things and generate reports on this side. Certainly reporting on payments, if there's an interest on that side of things as well, to be able to see all that as well. And each of these reports can be saved within the system, and so they don't need to be regenerated. They can be regenerated on a monthly basis, but they don't have to be built again.
Thank you. I have some questions. I think they'll just require brief answers. You talked about someone getting a 2-foot fence wouldn't need a permit. Does the system log in that address was told they don't need a permit?
The system would, much like here in this example, this is a application that wasn't submitted. The system would see that Joe came in, to gather information on a 2-foot fence, and the system told it didn't require a permit. It would share that if you wanted to view that information.
Okay,
And that's,
thanks.
just to clarify, that's only relevant if you guys have that rule. If you don't have that rule and all fences need permits, then we can build it that way too.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, no, I was just looking for when people are told stuff that they don't need something, that's logged in. Is the price you mentioned based on the city size, or does everyone pay the same?
Yep. No, it's based on the city size. Yes, sir.
Now, the city doesn't have a lot of staff. Should the city want help during the implementation phase, do you have people who can come and help?
Yep. Yeah, and that implementation phase would include us doing the work. Yeah, thanks for that. So we wouldn't be requiring you to do any work other than obviously share the processes that you want built. We're going to build what you want, but we can also speed up the process if, as an example, the city says, boy, we're just like Adelanto, California. Let's create a system like theirs. We could copy and paste that over and then work to tweak it to your exact needs after that, greatly speeding up the process.
Thanks.
Again, however it works best for you.
The permits in the city have two components. One is an issuance fee and the other is a valuation fee, for the most part.
Yep.
To me, the issuance fees are always too high. I'm hoping
Okay.
that having it be online, the issuance fee can trend towards zero. Is that a
Okay.
reasonable thought?
Yep. And we have a lot of cities that collect maybe an application type fee up front and then review the permit application and in essence invoice the remainder, to your point, the valuation, whatever. That can be done all up front, or it can be partly collected and then invoiced for the remainder, or nothing can be collected up front and we'll invoice the entire thing, however the city wants it to be done.
Thanks. Now you showed the parcel by address. Can it show the setbacks on the parcel map?
On the parcel map, it wouldn't, I think you were showing, whatever you had on this map, we could share, so if you did say, blue is, setbacks of this, that, and the other.
No, I mean on the individual parcel, is the AI capable of just drawing in the 25-foot side yard and 35-foot front yard setbacks?
Yes. Well, we could in the sense of, because we know the zoning of this parcel, and maybe in this example, an R1 residential zone has these setbacks. Again, that can be something that we quote unquote program into the system, right? Where the system says, is this an R1 zone? If yes, give them these setbacks.
And I don't mean to just tell them, I mean actually draw them on the map of the lot.
Oh, draw them on the map. Yeah. I don't know. We wouldn't be able to draw them on the map on that side of things.
All right. No problem.
Unless they're built into your GIS layers, because that's how the map works. It pulls from the GIS layers.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's my next question. I notice you have location-based alerts. And how do you get that information? Because the city has all kinds of constraints, earthquake faults, landslides, landslide hazard zones, old oil wells.
Sure.
Where and how do you get that information into the system?
Yeah, well, we can, any valuable information that is mapped, so we can bring those GIS layers in, faults and all that fun stuff. And within that, potentially in your parcel layer, there could be a lot of information about the property, the owner's phone number, whatever you want added, and that information based on the parcel where the work is happening can be pulled into the application as well. And the fact that it's in a flood zone or earthquake zone could also be brought in, and maybe it changes what's required in the permit, and so we can build that into it as well.
So you're using the city's plans, you don't go to the state website and get earthquake fault maps?
We can if there's good data there, wherever we can. So if the state has Esri online, we could go right up to that layer and link to it and utilize that as well.
Yeah, because that's where the city gets its maps from.
Okay.
I noticed your Civil Check AI application reviews plans for completeness. At what level does it do that? Because most of the plans come in, as your website said, most cities have the same issue. The plans are incomplete. How does it know what to tell the people they need?
Yeah.
Let's say.
That's the magic of AI. So we build, AI has the ability to, in essence, read the plans and identify missing pieces that you let us know what is required. Again, so it might be an engineering stamp, it might be whatever, a lot of requirements, and we can build that into the AI. And now, instead of the city going back and forth with the applicant, the AI can go back and forth, passing the document back and making them aware of what's not yet completed. And the system can be programmed to identify code violations as well and make them aware of potential code violations that they can fix before they submit the application.
So is it able to tell if...
In Honolulu, they require 95% completeness and for their plans in that way. So,
Thank you. Is it able to tell if the person put their graded area and hardscape area, or does it have the ability to check if the figures are correct?
yes, yep, exactly. Make sure there's enough smoke detectors in the addition or whatever exactly it is that it needs to check through. But the other neat thing about our AI is we call it ethical AI because there's always a human in the loop. The AI doesn't just go off on its own and make decisions. It recommends to your reviewers or to your applicants, I think this is missing. Now, your applicants say, no, it's not required, and they can override it. Same thing with your reviewers. The AI can say, I think this passed, and it highlights the fields that it used and the code that it used. But your reviewer can still say, no, it didn't pass, or yes, it did. And so there's always a human in the loop to make the final decision.
Thanks.
The goal there is just to speed that process up.
Thank you.
Stephen,
I was
do you
looking
have a
at
lot
your-
more? Do you have a lot more? Because we need to kind of move on. We only budgeted them for like 30 to 40 minutes.
No. Well, I had more. I guess I can not ask them.
Well, pick one of the, something important that's important to you.
I looked at one of your customers' Pleasant Hill website, and you couldn't look at the permits and plans. So I guess that's something, as you said, that's optional to check that you can see it. Another thing was that people had to register before they could find out how much a permit would cost. Is that necessary? You can just, someone go in anonymously to find out how much a permit would cost?
If the city allows it, they can log in as a guest and not, in essence, register, and they can generate a guide. If at the end of doing all that, they want to save the work, we still allow them the ability to log in afterwards and save the work. But if they don't want to save it, they could log off and, they gathered the information they wanted to and they just get out and in that way.
All right, thank you. We'll leave it there. Thanks for your time.
Mr. Espinoza, no questions? Okay, just can you clarify something for us? It might have been said, I might have missed it. An applicant could submit plans online. Is that correct, the architect? So that eliminates the need for bundles and bundles of plans at the counter there and in the office, because we walk into the building department, it's just full of plans. And then, so you can do that. And please clarify that there'll be a list of requirements before, when somebody's submitting a plan, that they could check off the different items that are needed. So hopefully they will submit a complete application the first time. Can you confirm that?
Yes, sir. And also you can see that clarity also, if the city would, if the engineering plans in this example are required as they are here, this is a required step, and you can see it, step must be completed. So the applicant would have to come in, find their engineering plan, drag and drop it in, and now that's completed, right? And those steps are done. And so we'll make sure that you have a complete package, submitted, at the end of the process, right? Without all those big rolls of plans, now they'll be digitized here for you.
Okay, thank you. We're looking at your presentation on probably, what, a 42-inch screen. so we really can't tell
Oh,
the
gotcha.
writing too much. So if we would have had a bigger screen, it might have made it a little bit more,
Impactful.
yeah. But anyway, thank you so much.
Sure.
And that's all, unless you have a question of us.
No, I appreciate the time, guys. Thank you. You for the opportunity to share it with you here.
Okay,
I'll leave my email with Christina. So if you guys think of any other questions that weren't answered, please feel free to loop in Christina and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I'll send you some information for CivCheck as well. In addition, I know it might have been hard to see the demo and we did a very quick overview for you guys. If you would like a formal demo, normally we do that in a Zoom meeting where everyone's on their own device and we can do a more detailed walkthrough. So if you're interested in that, we can set that up as well. But thank you so much for having us, you guys. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I'd like to move on to the consent calendar. Item 5, have you reviewed the minutes of the May 26th meeting? And if so, I'll entertain a motion.
A question.
Go ahead.
Rafferty, I was looking at the list of meeting archive. I noticed the Planning Commission minutes haven't been put in for about a year, except for one. Is that like in the works?
Yes, in the works to upload, we have several to get loaded into the system. Christina handles that one as she has the time to upload them up into the system to make sure they're there.
Thanks.
If we had clarity, they could just be uploaded, right? Maybe. Okay. Is there a motion or questions on the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Oh, okay, we'll take a vote. Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Blagden?
Yes.
Mr. well, I'm not sure if you vote or not.
Not today.
Not today, huh?
Quorum.
And I vote yes. The minutes are approved. And we move on to the monthly Community Development Department status report for June of 2026. Can we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair and Planning Commission. So the CDD report for June is in your packets. During that month, we issued 11 building permits, which totaled a little bit of permit valuation of about $1.3 million and took in just over $43,000 worth of permit fees. There were no code enforcement cases that were submitted and verified for the month of June. We have 17 active code enforcement cases. The Code Enforcement Division closed 3 code enforcement cases. We did issue 3 stop work orders in the month of June, have a total of 49 unpermitted construction cases active, and closed 2 of those unpermitted construction cases. In the planning side, 4 applications were submitted. We have a total of 61 projects under review, and we approved 2 planning projects in the month of June. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Any questions of staff? Mr. Blagden?
Thank you. Just check and see progress on that El Travicia, the walls and building.
We did have some communication with the architect and the homeowner. They went back and watched the video a couple of times, so we provided them the date and the time for that particular meeting, so they can go back to look at the comments from Planning Commission, and I believe the engineer is working on a solution with the homeowner that hopefully we'll have soon.
Yeah, because it's closing in on a year. If I read the report right, I don't see it on the code enforcement report anymore. Could have missed it. I looked at both sections. Yeah, sorry, you don't have to look now.
We'll double check to make sure it's there. Earlier we had a code enforcement committee meeting, and there was one that we closed out as part of it was done that we're going to make sure to add back into it. But we'll definitely take a look to make sure that it's on there.
Yeah, then I had put in a couple of code complaints myself, and I don't see them on the report.
They're mostly this past month, Kevin has been focused a little more on brush clearance side. So they're working now a little more on the code enforcement. He's getting back onto code, not just brush.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other comments, questions?
Oh, well, one more. I forgot.
Go ahead.
A couple of people mentioned to me at the end of Castlear, remember there are those houses that had the landscaping plans? There doesn't appear to be any progress installing the landscaping.
There's been a little bit of landscaping installed on one of the properties. I actually did meet with the contractor for that project, overall project, about 2 weeks ago to kind of discuss where they're at and moving them forward. They had kind of been stalled for a little while on some of that, so they're going to be picking back up to get them finalized.
All right, thank you.
They just brought in, I would estimate 100 yards of compost or mulch that there was trucks going nonstop. So they must be starting on landscape for what it's worth. I have one quick question, Rafferty. The property on Greenview that's been there forever where the foundation is there, the whole eyesore thing, I don't know that I see that on here. Can you just give me the status of that one?
Yes, that particular property is 672 Greenview. They have been in the process with our city prosecutor recently. The end of last week, there was a designer who came in and wanted to look at where the status of all the approvals and the plans that they had completed were at. And he was saying that he's going to be taking over the project from the current architect that had been working on the project for the building permits. That one's got a long history. Planning approved it in 2017. And then it sort of stopped and stalled, got restarted. They made it through and actually had an approved grading plan back in like 2023. But building plan check never passed like 2 reviews in building plan check, because obviously it's the hardest part of dealing with some of those retaining walls. And there's some tiebacks and other geotechnical things there that were never finalized as part of that original construction. And that's sort of where it's stopped and died again. But they are... City prosecutor is talking with them at the moment and looking at options for that particular property.
At some point we have to say, sorry, you tear it down and start over. You said 2017 or something. It's been longer than that.
The original foundation.
That foundation was there when I bought Skyline.
The original foundation was from like it stopped. Construction stopped in about 2008.
Yeah,
it was originally like 2006.
20 years is enough. They need to, fish or cut bait needs to come down, start over. So anyway, that's all. I just had that question.
After a couple of quick comments, and to my fellow commissioners, Mr. Brooks and I just came from the Code Enforcement Committee. It was a very productive meeting. We had this new city prosecutor here answering a lot of questions, and one of the things I brought up that, same as you, Mr. Blagden, like you're wondering where El Trevicia is on the report. I was wondering where there's another one on Sharpless that I know should be on the list because they haven't abated the nuisance, and now we have the Greenview one. So it kind of seems like this is happening. That's too many. I want to be able to rely on this report. I got a comment from somebody. This is a planning application. It's PRJ 23020, 365 West Skyline Drive. There's some people that live back. I guess there's a road or a private driveway, and there's people there. And I guess there's the application for this house. It's a new 2-story single residence. There's some issue about the people that live on that street don't want to give access to this new homeowner who I guess is going to tear down the house and build a new house. So they're concerned like, hey, this guy's coming in and he's going to use our driveway. It's not his driveway. Do you know about that as an issue, or has it been resolved, or what can you tell us?
From what I know, I don't believe the issue has been resolved. The property does front onto West Skyline. There is a shared private driveway that runs to some houses behind the particular property that doesn't run on that property, so they don't have they're not part of the access agreement for it, so they don't have rights to the shared reciprocal access in and out of it for it. So I know there's been some concerns from the neighbors surrounding and next to it of how they're accessing the property, how they may access the property in the back. It's some discussions that we've also had. Elizabeth has been working on the plans with that particular architect on where access is coming from, how it's getting there, and trying to resolve those issues as part of the plans.
Okay, thank you. So then the issue may just be resolved by Elizabeth, and Elizabeth has been hired to assist Rafferty. She's engineer, plan checker. What's your official title? Not sure.
She's
I can't read it from here.
She's our contract planner, is Elizabeth. She comes to us from a company, Civic Solutions, who the city's used in the past for planning services. And she's been pretty much doing most of the planning review and back and forth lately. It's getting harder for me to answer the planning questions because I'm doing less and less of it, and Elizabeth is doing more and more of it.
Okay, thank you.
As of right now, we're waiting on that specific address to resubmit. So I believe that on the next submittal, they are taking out the access that they had shown off that driveway as part of their modification from the previous submittal.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, so let's receive and file the monthly community report. You know, I want to discuss clarity amongst us a little bit, but I think I'm going to let item 8 come up. Mr. Rajic, you want to come up now and tell us about your project so you can leave? Huh? Is it number 9? I'm sorry, number 9. Would you like to come up and tell us about the project? Now, I'm moving you up so you don't have to be here another hour or half an hour. So.
I just know that we made a lot of mistakes but I think we just considered it as a prelim submittal, and I know that we have to make several changes, like the articulations. I know that it's probably way too high. We're going to have to add windows. The roll-up door probably, it's not acceptable to me. Probably needs to be like a wood, maybe looking opening. It's probably just submitted too quickly, and because I know it's going to take a while. But I don't know if you guys if you guys had some changes or comments. I'll listen to them and
okay.
try
Can
to
you give us a little report about it, or Elizabeth?
Yeah, Elizabeth will provide you some background and some information.
Because just so I understand, we're not here really to look at the building so much. Isn't the issue that you want to build more square footage than is allowed? You have
That's another issue. Yes.
2.14. Isn't that what you're really here for?
Well, that, and I know that it wasn't going to be accepted, a lot of the design.
Okay, so.
But I know that I'm building 1,500 square feet over the limit of the structure limit on 2.14 acres.
Okay.
And I don't know if I should waste my time.
This is a pretty typical process we've started with the commission. Is obviously his project is over what we could approve at a staff level, be coming to the planning commission. This is an initial submittal. Pretty typical of how we see initial submittals come in, and it is going to change over the series of reviews. So you figure he's going to go through a couple of rounds of staff reviews, address some of those comments, make some changes like he already has talked about making some changes. And then once the project is a little more developed and far along, all the departments have signed off, then story polls will go up, notice neighbors will go out, and it'll come back to the commission for a formal hearing. But this is a perfect opportunity right out of the gate. If there's some comments, some questions, some concerns, we can hear from the commission, and as it goes through that staff review process, we can work out those concerns, those issues, and that way when we bring it back, we bring back a better plan for the commission and hopefully be able to approve. But Elizabeth can provide you a little background, a little bit of details on
Okay,
the project.
go ahead. Can you hold the microphone
Yes.
closer to your
Oh,
mouth there?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't even turn it on. I just turned it on. Okay. So the parcel is at 854 Reposado. It is being proposed for development with a 4,300 square foot garage building over the existing tennis court that they have on site. It would have a setback meeting all of our requirements, which would be approximately 45 from the front setback, 40 for the house, and then 40 to the side, and then 105 feet from the rear. The major concerns that would take it over what our limit is would be the fact that it is over by 1,500 square feet, over the limitations for that specific parcel at 2 acres. And then also the height that's being proposed at 23 feet and 9 inches tall, which is just under what PC limit would allow, which is 24. Because they went over by 1,500 rather than 1,000, which would be done through director approval, that extra 500 kicks it into PC level review. As of right now, we have comments that are ready to be sent out to the applicant, but we did want to hear your guys' concerns and any comments that you had prior to sending them their official letter of comments.
Okay, thank you. So just for a little clarification for the newer members on the commission, I don't know when it was instituted, but it was decided by someone, so some projects maybe just call them up, bring them to the planning commission early to maybe give the applicant a little feedback. And that's basically what we're doing here. So we're not so much, how many windows he has or not. It's more of a square footage. The planning director can go 1,000 feet over, but he needs to go 1,500 on 2.14 acres, I think it was.
Correct.
So I just want to get your input from the commissioners if they think this garage, I understand the applicant has collection of cars or something, older cars or something. So he wants to exhibit them in his garage, So that's what we're here for. So Mr. Lucas, what are your thoughts?
I think one of my concerns is, if you look at the tennis court on the left-hand side, you have the set of trees that looks like it's going to be right next to the building, right? And so it shows as existing trees. So for fuel modification, it seems like those would have to be, removed and somehow figured out how to screen that facility, right?
Okay.
So there's 5 trees, and when I went out there, you can see a wall of trees along the tennis court that do screen the next door neighbor's house. So that's one thing I assume would be redone during this revised plan. Also, it'd be good if it does to the next step is to see some story poles that are put out there. I did drive by. I saw the basketball backboard. I think maybe double that size, 24 feet. It looked pretty big, but it's hard just to visualize it. So story poles would be great too. That's kind of my 2 initial comments.
Okay. Mr. Brooks?
Yes, thank you. So I would lean towards approving the extra square footage. You've already mentioned about the design. Your house is beautiful, by the way. I'm familiar with your property. It's well landscaped. Honestly, looking at this plan, I don't think you would want to look at this in your front yard, a big 80-foot long straight wall. So there's going to have to be articulation. It may not just be straight. You're going to have to bring walls in and out and have your roof line have some character to it to soften it. There's a lot of word that's used here is massing, and when you look at an 80-foot wall by a 50-foot wall, I think you're going to struggle getting the design approved. So have your architect make it look more like a house or like your house rather than a big long box.
Yeah, I understand.
Instead of having a big 20-foot roll-up door, I would suggest splitting it into 2 16-foot doors with some gaps in between, and again, you need to soften the look of the whole project. If you have a window up above it, even if you put a little balcony that does nothing, but it looks, It's going to give it some depth and some different, a different feel to try to soften it. It's going to trigger, I'm sure, a landscape plan, so you might as well be prepared for that. If you have any eucalyptus or pine trees, they'll have to be removed. As far as the trees go, I think it's 10 feet, Rafferty, is that what it is? So the tree canopy has to be more than 10 feet away from the roof line. So you should probably take that into consideration when you're sizing it. You have existing trees there. You're going to have to block a minimum of 50% of the building. So you've got existing trees. Maybe you got to make it a little bit smaller to keep it the distance and let the existing trees work. Unfortunately, the next property is below you, so they're looking up, and then that's going to make it look that much bigger looking up on it rather than looking down on it. So anyway, that's just my initial thoughts on it, is break up the roof line. There's, I think, a 20-foot, roof line that you can go, so you're going to have to break it a couple of times along there. And then as far as windows and architecture, you can do that to make it appealing. So anyway, that would be my recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Ms. Hess?
I would just say when you do your next submittal that I would definitely like to go do a site inspection, and I'm sure that my other commissioners would like to do that as well. So I find it helpful if we can get more notice than just the Friday before we have our hearing. Then we can do a little bit better planning. Perhaps we could go out as a group. I would also recommend that if you resubmit, I find it helpful that when on the plans it shows where the neighbors' homes are in relation to your home, because then it gives us a better idea of who's going to be affected potentially by having this new structure go in. And I can kind of start looking for it when I go over there and see the site.
Mr. Blagden?
Thank you. Mr. Rajek was nice enough to show me his tennis court and where he wants the garage to go. Some things, it doesn't show the setback based on the variable setback, but it looks like there's plenty of room there, it won't affect anything. And if it's shorter, it won't make any difference. And then as far as the height, the code 71840, I mean, there's a conflict in the code. The building design standards have a 16-foot limit, and then you need a variance. It says it twice there. And then you go to 719, the standards modification. As you said there, it allows up to 24 feet. So according to the code and the conflict, the stricter applies. So that's something we should add to the list of codes to look at so that they be consistent. And then people have mentioned some other things, so I think.
Would you be opposed to the extra 1,500 square feet?
That's a variance item. I can see how it would work. Needs to have the landscaping, but I understand why he wants the garage. It is helpful to be able to have a place to work on your stuff.
Okay, thank you. Rafferty, a point of order. We have an alternate commissioner here, and I'd like to hear his thought, but considering there's already 5 of us, am I allowed to take comments from him?
Yes, because you're not making a decision on it tonight. It's just a discussion, so he's more than welcome to participate. And typically, in the past, with the alternates, we've allowed them to participate all the way along, and then it just depends on if, like tonight, we have 5 members. He sits in the hard seat of can participate, but then wouldn't vote on it, but still can participate.
All right. Maybe I should have asked you that question since you're a judge, right? Or you were a judge?
Yeah, a long, long time ago.
Okay. So what comments do you have?
I just want to thank the homeowner for coming in and acknowledging the deficiencies in the plan, recognizing he's got a lot of work to do. I'm not sure we need to do much tonight, and I would like to go out as a group when the next set comes in and take a look at it. Sounds like a lovely piece of property.
Okay. Thank you. Did you want to make any other comments? I think you've gotten some good guidance here.
Your comments, and I'll get with the architect and get something back to you guys.
Okay. Thank
for
you.
your time.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Good night. So do we want to discuss the expedited permitting process? I want to hear from staff. What did you think of the presentation? Is it something you think would work in our city? Would it maybe have the 30% efficiency that he mentioned just by maybe the call level would drop, or people coming to the counter? Well, give us your thoughts, since you would be the point man in trying to get this implemented.
For me, looking at it, it's always that. We have a very limited staff. I mean, you're looking at Elizabeth and Alan in the back. Like, Alan's our permit tech, and tonight video extraordinaire in the back. Elizabeth's here 2 days a week to help review and go through plans. Like today, you had 7 people at the counter. Seven people at the counter with just random questions and things like that. That I don't know that software would answer those questions, but I don't think any software would answer those questions. It's kind of like, Commissioner Blagden was talking about, some of our codes are variable, they're very property specific, we have weird shapes and things like that. But I think there was some benefit to having the ability for people to go in and apply for something online. I know, like, submitting online and having it make it all the way through, like we saw tonight, if that plan went through an AI filter to make sure that it was checked, it wouldn't have made it through. So I know at some point we always talk about completeness of projects, but sometimes we got to get it in, get it reviewed, get that list of corrections out them, the things that they need to provide to us, to just kind of get the ball rolling to it. So I know there is it's a double-edged sword to making sure the project is complete and ready to go and everything is there. Your soils report, your seepage, your percolation test, your fuel modification, landscaping plans, all of your architecturals, LID, and all of that stuff together. But then sometimes this project is probably going to change pretty significantly from the beginning to the end. At some point, we need to jump in and review those plans and look at it and provide those comments to people for it. But there is definitely some benefit to having people be able to have access and get permits online. Our current permitting system that we operate today has an online portal. It's never been activated. It's never been looked at. It's never been implemented, because that was just the way the system was set up originally, was that way, where we weren't going to take things online and everything was going to be paper and over the counter and move it through that aspect of it. So there are options for us to look at and or implement some digital side of things as we move forward and look at it. If everything is hosted on their end, it's not hosted on our servers, it takes a load off of our IT infrastructure. Our IT infrastructure is not super robust to be able to store plan sets and revisions and all that data, which can eat up an amazing amount of server space. For us, it's also looking at retention type schedules and things like that, making sure if somebody wants to come in and look at a plan, we have a way to be able to let them look at that plan and show them the plan to it. I know it's just, it's a process and to go through it. To me, I look at the time and the amount of the energy to get there, and I look at the number of staff members I have and the limited time that I have to be able to sit down and kind of look at, as he did a good example of, you build the steps in there for the fence. Okay, you set your height of the fence. Does it need this? And does it need this? Then does it need this? Then does it need this? That's going to be staff time to work through those issues, because we're not necessarily like another city where we can just directly steal things from another city and implement their process and things here. We have a lot of very unique things for our very unique city we have. So it's a good program. I think I'll probably want to meet with them so we can dig a little more deeper into it. Data transfer and all of that would be huge for us. Having an easy way to make that transition from our current system to a new system, and having all that inspection history, all that code enforcement history, all the permit history, all the planning history, be able to transfer over to where we can access it, is going to be key. I mean, we've been using that system for 15 years. So you think of the number of planning applications that are in there, the number of code enforcement cases that are in there, and being able to transfer all that data is key. So those are the things I would probably spend a little more time talking to them. Not as important to the planning commission to think about that aspect of it, but that's like the nitty gritty of the time that it would consume of staff to move to a different system.
Well, I just want to make a couple points. The RAGIC project, that would never go through this system. Like Long Beach, for example, they have limits on what could be submitted. Long Beach is pretty generous. You can submit a 500 square foot room addition. I think if it's a one-story, if it's a two-story, it's a different process. So don't think that people are going to submit plans for a custom home or anything. That's not going to work. This is more just the bread and butter, electrical, plumbing, a small remodel. You want to, put in a new kitchen, a roof, things like that. So I want to make that clear that it's not like people are going to submit a bunch of plans for custom homes and AI is going to plan check it and approve it. That's not going to happen. Elizabeth, what are your thoughts? Do you work in any city that has something like this?
So I've worked across California at approximately 12 cities now. And every city has a tracking system. Every single one of them is different. Some of them are integrated with their GIS. Some of them are integrated with plan review as well, all connected. But I will say in the instance of La Habra Heights, there are too many irregular lots for this to fully take effect. So I've been in cities where they're large lots, but they're regular shaped, and that makes it significantly easier to make a determination. Like today, Rafferty and I had to sit down and was like, are we sure this is considered the front property line? Just in case, before we give that information out to the public, because we want to make sure whoever's getting it will be able to use that information and actually build what they want to build. While I only had 7 people at the counter today, we had another 6 or 7 on the phone. Each of those calls were about half an hour to an hour, and that all depends on what they're asking, right? So for me, we were able to provide some investors and developers also for new single-family homes. What are we looking at if I needed to do a subdivision map along with, 5 new homes and, considerations for environmental issues and access for fire? I think all those things can't be tracked by a lot of these data tracking software. But it is, I think for efficiency's sake, it could help with the ability to obtain new permits, because of course it is very difficult, I think, when people hear that we're only taking hard copy. And it's becoming more rare everywhere I work. Like maybe 90% of the cities I work at are digital. But like Rafferty said, we don't have the capacity on our servers. Even with our current retention, I'm not entirely sure if our servers can handle that.
Okay, I'm going to just make a comment on what you said. I think the size of your lot, or whether it's irregular or whatever, does not matter if you want to apply for a bath remodel permit. Like I said, this is for simpler projects. So I'll start on this side since I started there. Ms. Espinoza, what are your thoughts? Let's keep them a couple of minutes each so we can.
I recently talked to Rafferty about this because my wife and I recently received a grant from the state of California for earthquake retrofitting. We selected a contractor from their list who does work all over Southern California. And he said, and it delayed the project slightly, he said this is the only city where he couldn't get his plans approved electronically. And so I talked to Rafferty about that. I understand the issues, and I appreciate your distinction between real complicated submissions and the simple stuff. And if we could set up a system for the simple stuff, I think it would be very helpful.
Thank you. Mr. Blagden?
Yes, we spent a lot of time, and the Clarity person spent a lot of time talking about plan implementation, reviewing plans and what plans need. But if that's impractical to do, that's fine. We can start with water heater permits, electrical permits, roofing permits, and just grow into the larger stuff. And that's pretty easy. When the city got the current system back in 2007, that was an option to be able to do that because it's pretty simple. And then Elizabeth was mentioning people asking questions. Do you write down the questions that people ask? So you can, because like when I do a manual or have to do one, if a customer or a client asks a question, I write it down. So that's something that you want to have in a manual or guide is the answer to that question, unless it's something very specific. So try and keep it simple and don't repeat work you've already done.
Yes and no. So yes, we keep some record. With every appointment we have, we know what they requested for in terms of information. On repeat customers or on repeat parcels, so say we're looking at Costolero area, there's maybe 4 parcels on sale right in that area, and currently we've had, even today, I had 4 calls just about Costolero, and they're all different because they're all different parcels. However, the information provided is the same, and oftentimes I end up sending them a template with all the code requirements along with the application information as well, and how they can submit, and along with all the checklists that they'll require in order to move forward. So yes and no. No, I don't write down every single question that we receive, but majority of the questions are quite similar, and so it also really depends on what they're doing. So like say we're looking at just specifically a modification for a house to add 500 square feet, while sometimes it could be okay if the parcel's flatter. Once you get into the hillsides, it makes it much more difficult because you're looking at overall height plus whatever footing you're adding, plus any kind of additional modifications you need in order for it to match the existing house. Maybe it's an articulation issue, all those kinds of things that like really 500 square feet might sound like an easy addition, but here, because of the way the code is written, it requires an additional look. While AI could do a lot of things, I just don't know if it's going to catch the things we necessarily need to catch ahead of time, especially with, say, fault lines even, or flood areas that are in potentiality for development. We want to know those ahead of time, and especially with experience, like say at Rafferty knows a certain parcel, while it doesn't say it's in a flood zone, it floods every year, you know. That's something like institutional knowledge that while we can put it into the computer, it might not 100% translate, and I think that is something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Just so I make sure I understand it then, it sounds like you're saying that regardless of even if you end up using the system, that you're still going to have to do your own individual plan check because you just don't trust that the AI is going to catch every individual unique aspect of the city's municipal code. Is that correct?
Yes, and I've received some plans that have been AI generated, and some of them just don't have sinks. Like they have a whole entire house and they submitted it and there's not a single sink in the whole entire house except for the kitchen. They have like 7 bathrooms, not a single sink. So
okay, so there's a concern then that this isn't really going to be saving a lot of time on your end as far as keeping the paperwork down or the time that you need to invest into reviewing these plans.
Right, I think it will cut down paperwork coming in. So as of right now, I'm hand checking majority of the things that come into the office. So we do get a set of plans, say it's missing some information, even from the get-go. I end up not accepting it because it ends up being more of a hassle later on in the process. Like if we were to accept the plan set with missing pieces, then their list of items that they're requesting for becomes twice as long. If I can stop them at the beginning and be like, hey, you're still missing this, this, and this, it does give them a chance to, oh, I didn't realize, I just forgot it at home, I'll bring it back. It's a little bit nicer, we can kind of have that conversation. And if there's very obvious things like, hey, you forgot about the fault line that runs through your property, I can catch them there as well. So it really just depends on the specific project. I think with the smaller stuff, like Ray said, I think it will make it a lot easier and a lot faster. The bigger we get, it'll be a little bit more complicated. But I can also see what you mean, Stephen, by the information specifically doing tracking for smaller things like AC units or plumbing or electrical. Assuming that it's all interior, it would be significantly faster instead of coming into City Hall and processing it in person.
So I guess that's really my concern then, is just return on investment here, because it seems like there's going to be a big expense, and in an ideal world we would love to be digitized and have everything be electronic, just like all these other cities are doing. 90% of the cities she works with have this type of a program. But you have to think then too, okay, is it really worth going through the time and expense to do this if it's really only going to be helpful for the small applications, if you're talking about things like a new roof, but it's not going to help with any of the major projects like the building projects, because they still have to spend the time to double check everything. And we don't have the server's ability to accept digitized plans at this point, which means we'd have to upgrade the servers. And that's an additional expense. I don't know how much that's going to cost. A lot, right? So in a perfect world, it sounds like this would be great, but I'm not 100% convinced yet that this is going to be worth the time and the money for the benefit that we would get out of it, just because our city is a little bit unique. We're not a bigger city that has the ability to implement some of the changes that would need to be made.
Before I go on this side, let me address some of the concerns. I think Mr. Blank said, this is a process. We don't just jump into it and everything gets on, put online. You start like with the smallest things and you build it up, to a certain level. As far as your concerns that, is it worth the cost? Right now, a lot of people don't get permits because they don't want to deal with plan checking on a small project. And I can give you many examples, but I won't bore you with that, and it's getting late. So one of the other things is that we already pay a certain amount of money. I think Rafferty told me $8,000 or something. You have to pay for every station, right? So we pay a certain amount already for this, right?
So our current program is based off of user licenses. So however many usernames we have, it's $1,800 per year per license. We have 4 licenses that we currently use because not every person needs their own license. There's building inspector, building permit, planning, and then like the one on the back. So it's fire, finance, city clerk that utilize those because not everybody's using the system at the same time.
And Rafferty, does that include IT support? You said there's IT support needed sometime, or is that extra?
No, it includes that. I mean, for the most part, we've had the system up and running. It's been going since 2010. So all of our stuff is in there. It works. Our biggest thing right now is like every year when fees increase. So in July, fees increase. So we put in the request. They send us a spreadsheet. We fill out the spreadsheet. We upload the spreadsheet. They add it to the system and update all the fees for the year. And then Alan will go through, or myself or Angie, and we'll double check to make sure the fees are updated and correct and go back and forth. Sometimes if there's something we need to add or change, you just put it in through a ticket and it doesn't add anything additional to it.
And one of the thoughts, Ms. Hess, is that a lot of people now don't pull permits. That's a fact. And you get out there and you talk to people, they don't want to come down here. They don't want to go through the process. So if the city advertised in the Heights Live, hey, we have this new thing, and get your permit, maybe the extra revenue that's going to be generated, because people know, hey, if I go change my electrical panel and I don't get a permit, my house burns down, and they come and investigate and they say, oh, you got a panel and no permit, guess what? Insurance isn't going to cover you. So maybe, some of those points can be made. So that's that. Okay, Mr. Brooks, what do you think?
Thank you. So a couple things. One is, and I've made this argument before, and I made it when I was trying to go through planning with my house. Our planning is way out of line. There's no reason in the planning stage to ask for soils reports, LID plans, perk tests, where the earthquake fault zone is. None of that matters. And when this was before you, Rafferty, his name was Lee or something, his last name, I don't remember. Anyway, he asked me for all those things. And I said, okay, I'll do them all, but here's the deal. Here's my house, here's what I want to build. I'll do everything based on this, but if you don't approve this, I spent all that money for nothing. Or if I have to change it and redo all this because you haven't approved my plan yet, then I'm going to back charge the city for all my expenses. And he got the message. And he said, okay, you're right, Mr. Brooks. Because I said, look, if you don't approve my house, I'm not going to build what I don't want to build, and I don't need to spend on soils reports. I don't need to have, a perk test. I don't need to have an LID plan. So, for us to ask all that in planning, I totally disagree. And I think that's why it takes so many years for these projects to get approved. Because that's not planning, that's plan check when all of those things do it. Next thing you're going to ask for is, well, you need to send it to a structural engineer and let's look at all your framing plan to get it approved in the planning stage. And that's ridiculous, okay? So we could simplify the planning to the design and to what planning actually is, and it would save the people a lot of money and a lot of headaches and not overwhelm them with everything they have to do just to see if they could build something. Now, I look at this as two different steps. Someone who wants to build a new house, I don't think any program is going to do everything complete for a whole new house project. But for a room addition, look at what all our code complaints are on. A new roof with no permit. A patio where they built a deck, or they put in an air conditioner, or they added a bathroom, or did some little construction. All of those things, this would cover it. So I'm 100% for it because it will make the process easier. Now, I totally understand from your standpoint, about how overwhelming it is to say, well, building this whole thing out, there's so much data and we don't have the time. I get it. A few years ago, I bought a machine shop and they did everything by paper. All their travelers and all their accounting and everything was white paper, long paper. And I just bit the bullet and put it all in an ERP system. And it was a lot of work to convert everything, but now that it's converted, it is so easy. When I need to quote something, I can look up the job, I know all the hours, all the data is right there. When there's a change or a change order or a revision, it's so easy because all the data is right there. It's like, I learned old school how to draft on a board, and then learning AutoCAD, I fought it until I realized how easy it was to make changes, and I see this being the same thing. So it'll be a lot of work in the beginning, but it'll be worth it in the long run. Now, we brought up about how much data's a lot cheaper than what it used to be, but I'm assuming that this system, I didn't ask, but it's internet-based, so their cloud system is going to store everything. It's not our local server that's going to store all this, and their software is going to come in and pull all this information out of our server. That would be really, really inefficient from a software standpoint. So that's a big question to ask. All the data is stored in their cloud servers.
I think she mentioned that.
Okay. So you know, the way you're doing it now, it's on your servers, which are expensive. So I get that. So really, those are the 3 points, but I think this will really cut back on the code enforcement issues where people go and do something, you know, because nobody's going to tear down a lot and build a whole house without pulling a permit. So, but it's the room addition, it's the roof, it's the remodel, it's the electrical panel or the air conditioner or all the other little things, a swimming pool. Somebody tried to put in a swimming pool without a permit. I mean, so anyway, I think that you should pursue it to the next step and address your concerns. Then it's only a matter of money, because they said they have people that have done this before that will help with the transition. So I think that it's something that in the long run you'll be really happy that you did it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, it looked like a great system and could be very efficient for residents and for the city. You know, I do agree with Commissioner Hess's concern with economics and the payback and so on. I think you just do a quick time study. You know, if we're paying $24,000 a year for this annual license, we're currently out of pockets $8,000, so it's a delta of $16,000. Divided by 12 months, you're about $1,400 a month extra that we'd be paying, right? So are there enough permits that come in per month for water heaters, ACs, you know, pools, roofing? And if you have 30 per month or 20 per month and it saves you 2 hours, I would think the economics should pan out. And I agree with Ray as well, is that you are going to have additional permits come in if you make it a lot easier. So I would think the economics work, and this, like the incremental benefits may seem to make sense. From a resident standpoint, it'd be great to go in there and see all my permits on one screen versus going to my file and trying to find where my permits are for previous work. So I think it's great for everyone if we can implement this in a manner that makes sense to all of us. So.
Okay.
If I could just interject one last thing, that, you know, they mentioned about the code complaints, and at the code committee that we were just at, you know, the fire department talked about spending $30,000 a year for their software for doing all the code complaints. Would this eliminate the need for that other $30,000 that the fire department has? I mean, I know that's a more powerful software, more designed for what they're doing, but I don't know that this couldn't be modified to do away with that.
The program they use for the brush clearance and that, from what we saw in the presentation, how they track the permits and inspections and all those things wouldn't work for strictly the way they do brush. And they tried to move away from it. They moved to a different system because we were paying close to $40,000 a year for the software we were using for brush clearance. So we looked for something that was a little different. It was one of the first softwares that was out there related for prevention and inspection for fire at the time. So that's where we started with them. And then we originally sat down with them to do that and code enforcement, because the fire chief at the time thought he could spread that cost across 2 departments. So it's not eating as much out of his budget. We can split it between 2, and it's still the same amount of money, but it all comes out of everybody's budget. But even at that time, they were strictly just prevention, so brush and interior inspections, wouldn't do any code enforcement to it. They moved to another software this past year. At the beginning of the year, we moved to another company, to much cheaper. Other agencies were going to this other software and doing prevention type inspections, so brush clearance and occupancy inspections, and went through the whole transition period, went through the data migration. It just didn't work. They couldn't get the system to do what they needed it to do, so we ultimately had to go back to the company we were at. And then we went back to that company. We had the conversation about, why did we walk away? We walked away because it was too expensive. We couldn't keep affording to pay that fee every year. And then they reevaluated, realizing like their cost structure was based off when they started, and to like we were paying as much as LA City was paying. We do not as many inspections as LA City does. We're a much different jurisdiction, and we worked with them to reduce the cost and provide some other tiers to it. But they would probably still have to stay with their system they use today.
Thanks, Rafferty. Just a couple of comments. I'm going to go back to something you said, and I don't remember exactly when, but you said, as a city, when you stop growing, you start dying. I'm a big believer in that. Even in our own lives, if we just sit around all day watching TV, we become sedentary and we don't do well. And so I think this is needed. I'm a big proponent of it. I've spent many, many hours on this, not just with Kate, but with people at the City of Long Beach. And the City of Long Beach recommended these people, which brings up a question in my mind. Let's say we like these people, and we as a planning commission agree to take it to another step, whatever step that may be, would we have to get competitive bidding and get other companies to give us a streamline? So this could just drag on forever, right?
It potentially can, and this isn't the first time we looked at other software systems. I mean, most of you remember Nicole.
Yeah.
She had for a while wanted to change systems and look at different systems. And we had several meetings with different companies to try to get it to fit our needs, make those transitions, but we could never find one that could do what we needed it to do for all that we utilize. So our current permit tracking system, we use it for building permits, we use it for our planning applications, code enforcement, public records requests, the paramedic membership subscription program, business licenses, brush clearance. Before we moved to the current brush clearance system, they used to do it out of Citizen Serve, so we did it out of there. So all of that data, all those things are all built into that system. So like moving away from that in total, we'd have to have a system that would be able to accommodate all of those data sets and move forward, which has always been one of the bigger struggles, because some of them will do like building and code enforcement or building code enforcement planning, or they do just strictly finance, and there wasn't the variety that we have with our current system that we utilize today. But it doesn't mean we couldn't explore what that option of the online portal. I mean, Commissioner Blackton's been there since the beginning of it and kind of talked about there is a module for our current system to be able to do that. We can also explore that option as well too, and look at what that option looks like compared to what Clarity looks like, to see, what it is and if it's better or worse, if it's worth turning that one on, abandoning our system and moving to a whole new system, to go through that process.
Hey, what I sense more, the financial concerns that you have, Ms. Hess, I don't have. I mean, when the city can buy that lot over there on Las Palomas and West Row, what do we pay for that, like $1.4 million, something like that? But there's a return on investment. They pay about 10 grand a month for a few years. But we're thinking of buying the lot on Harbor for what, 2.1 million? And that's just going to be land sitting there. To me, this is just a no-brainer of an investment. Even if it costs a little bit of money, we don't get the return right away. Just the benefit that you probably can't quantify of the people being able, hey, I can finally, just go down, get a permit. I don't have to run down to City Hall and wait behind two other people that have been waiting there already for an hour because we don't have enough staff. So that to me is big. The one thing I sense a hesitation from staff here, and I understand that, just like he said, I get it, but the implementation phase could be tricky. But you got people in the city that would volunteer maybe to help with the records and things. I mean, we could hire, as part of the implementation, hire a temp. So I don't see that as a big issue. I really notice the hesitation on you because it's going to fall on you. If this is a flop, it's going to fall on me.
My time and my energy and my ability to do other things. I mean, this is one small component of the things that we have to do. And
so what if we get some help?
But it also, like we're talking about, a lot of the stuff in building those permits, it takes some institutional knowledge.
Right,
So a lot of times that's going to fall back to me.
okay.
And this is one of like 50 other things that I have going on at the same time and always have going on at the same time. And I don't necessarily have the solid time to dedicate just to do this. It's there. I mean, there's multifaceted aspects of the city that we have to do and operate. We're under constant pressure from the state, from the feds, from all kinds of different regulations, all kinds of different areas that all come at us at the same time. Like, it is very hard to have the dedicated time to do a thing. Any particular day, I don't get more than a few minutes to do one thing before there's a question or a problem or something or another meeting or things that come along. That's why it's hard. Like, you send me emails and I can't get you back an email because a lot of times this is normally when I leave the office, sometime around 8 o'clock, because this is kind of the only time we have time to get work done. So that's some of my hesitation as to it's going to fall back to staff. I mean, Commissioner Blagden could probably do it because probably no one knows the code inside and out more than he does. He probably knows it more than I do. You know, but it's one of those things where like a lot of times it's going to come back to staff. I mean, even Elizabeth could help and do some of that, but there's some of those things that still comes back to like, how's that decision been made in the past and how do we do it and how do we get there? That's some of my hesitation as to like moving into a system, moving into that transition. That's when you hear my like hesitation and my trepidation of it is I got to think big picture. Like, you know, I always have this conversation with Michael. Michael always watches the meetings. You know, he used to just look at just the building aspect of it. This is what I need for building. But I've got to look at this is what building needs, but this is what planning needs, this is the community needs, this is what council needs, and that bigger picture of it and that broader overview as to how we can manage all of those aspects. So that's some of where my trepidation comes to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't want to, and I don't think it wouldn't be a benefit and be a help. It's just I've got 9 people to run the entire city. 9 people. City of Whittier has nearly 400 employees to do what we do with 9.
Okay, so look, I'm a problem solver. You probably know me by now. So I fully understand everything you just said. But let's say we go with this. Couldn't there be a day, you're off on Fridays, get paid overtime, bring in a couple of people on staff, get volunteers, and institutional knowledge is a big deal. You have the knowledge. You can impart your knowledge to someone. You can hire Miss Hess, who was an attorney, or no, not hire you.
She's going
be
to
a volunteer.
Commissioner
I'm
Blagden is
sure
raising his hand.
She can file. But anyway, all right, so what's the next step? What should we do here?
Chair Fernandez, I think Commissioner Blagden had a comment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Rafferty, just having a system that does simple permits, water heater, electrical, roofing, is that a burden to get rolling? I mean, from listening to him, it's not like they could just do most of that themselves.
I mean, very simple permits of those probably aren't that big of a lift, but having 5 permits available on a system, is it going to start being weird where are we going to get a mixture of some people that are going to pull those online, in person? Like,
Well, it's a start, you know, to get the little stuff out of the way. Just an idea.
So, Mr. Blagden, would you volunteer your time to do this? You're very detail oriented. If this was to come about,
And I wouldn't mind helping out.
So I'd help out.
Okay, so what should we do? Should we try to forward this to the city council to see if they'd be interested? Because they're the ones that are going to have to decide. If we have, it seems like everybody's kind of in agreement except your little hesitant.
Well, I think we want to send something to them, not a broad recommendation, but just narrow, like go rolling with small permits. Don't get into the discussion about room additions and that in a second floor. Just very simple things.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about sending it to the city council to say that the planning commission recommends that you look at this company clarity to enact an online permitting system that, you know, would be small steps at first and it could grow.
No,
That's
I wouldn't send it that broad, because the more you put on them, you get into all kinds of diversions and stuff. Just keep it simple. We had a Zoom meeting with them. It looks like it would be good to have this as a start with water heaters, roofing, electrical permits, whatever you want to add. Just keep it simple.
And just call it like a phase one implementation being easy stuff. So there's no confusion.
Yeah,
I
but
just
it's a
wanted to
lot
clarify
more
too
than.
that I'm not anti-clarity. I actually think that it's a good idea to modernize, but I think that we're kind of sitting here not being the ones that actually have to implement it, and Rafferty and Elizabeth are the staff that actually have to do it, and they've raised concerns that I think are valid concerns. That's my position.
And I agree with that.
And also the question is, can we sole source it, right? I think that's another decision, or do we have to RFP it out if we were to do something, so.
Alan's got a comment back there. Come up to the mic and state your name and address, please, for the record.
It's on? Oh, okay. I am Alan Palacios. I'm the permit tech. So just before you guys keep going, I just want you to know that CitizenServe, the program that we use, already has the ability to do online permitting. We just have never turned it on.
Can it have maps, interactive maps where you can see
Yes.
code enforcement issues and all that?
Most of the features that were presented are already in CitizenServe, the program we use.
And this is a system that's about 15 years old that you were mentioning?
Yes, this is the system we already have.
Okay, so what are you saying, that not even look at this and maybe upgrade that system?
Well, the things that Rafferty has said, I still concur. We don't have the tech, we don't have the server capacity, we don't have the computers, we don't have the staff to implement it. We could implement it today.
Is it web-based then? It's web-based. Okay. So
You're saying just have them so-called flip the switch to do the easy permits.
Yep.
And then grow from there as possible.
Yes.
Is there an incremental cost?
Thanks, Alan.
So if you can flip the switch, why haven't you done it?
Because of the reasons that Rafferty stated, we don't have the server capacity, we don't have the staff, we don't have the equipment to handle all of that.
Well, will they let the city use their servers to keep the permits on?
I don't know about the legality of having.
Well, not legality, capability.
I think we have to keep some of the records ourselves by policy. Yeah.
Okay, so what's your pleasure? Do we recommend that the city council look at it? Or what?
Well,
'Cause
given what they're saying, I think that city council should make a decision whether to make the effort to turn on what we have or to go to this other system. I don't want to try to solve the problems tonight, but to say we don't have the server when the cloud is out there, I don't buy that. I'm ITAR, and I do government contracts that are saved on a secure server. So anyway, I think that that's the two options. It makes sense if you already have it and familiar with it, if it's something that'll grow. If it's been around for 15 years, I'm sure it's not a 15-year-old program. If it's web-based, it's been updated to go along. So I think they should either look at that or look at this, but I think one way or another, it should be implemented. So
how about if we make a recommendation that this be put on the agenda of the city council? Can we do that like we did the square footage for a discussion item?
Well, I would say have it go to them and give them a choice of so-called flipping the switch with the vendor they already have, or looking at getting another vendor for the narrow categories of simple permits.
Well, I'd really like to know, this is the first I really hear that we have a system that you need to flip a switch. We don't have any knowledge of what it can do and what it can do compared to Clarity. This is like a up-to-date, the latest and the best.
Why don't we arrange for them to provide a demo for us so we can see what their software looks like? On the back end side of it, all of our permits are in there. I mean, we take the paper permits and we translate those into the forms on the website today. So we could look at a demo from them to see what the differences are between the two systems, how they work, how they operate, what the difference is, and if Clarity has a much better process and a way easier user interface, maybe it's worth making that change to it. If our current system can get us to the same point with relatively ease, all of our permit history, all of our things are already in their system, already there, and it might make that transition easier, then we can look at that. So we can try to do that for the commission and see if that's something that would give you some options to see what the different systems look like.
What's the name of the current system you have?
Citizen Serve.
Citizen Serve.
It sounds like it does. I just looked it up while we were talking on my phone, and it looks like it does do a lot of the things that we talked about. So because we have it, it's less expensive. The transition would be probably easier. I think that's a great idea, Rafferty. If maybe Citizen Serve can give a presentation and
see what let's see what the program looks like and look at the differences between what is there today, what they can do, versus what we saw Clarity has the ability to do.
And also whatever incremental costs there would likely be too.
Yes. And why hasn't Citizen Serve, they made a big point, Clarity, of saying that they're there to help in the transition and the thing. Why can't Citizen Serve do what's needed in the back office to implement the system? Why haven't they done it?
Because we've never gone to them to request to move to online permitting.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it then. We'll have a presentation at the next meeting from Citizen Serve, and then we can decide. Meanwhile, we can all maybe do our own research. All right. Anything else? I think we've talked enough about that. And now we'll get to item 8. Review of the limits on square footage of structures, continued from May 26. Okay, so you guys know all about this. Why, I'm not going to go into detail of why I think we need to do this. But I did, just to get a little feedback from the community, I made a Facebook post on this La Habra Heights Facebook group. That actually my son is I guess the administrator of it, and he's got like 1,200 members or something. And I did a post telling about these proposed changes, and there's been about 82 comments, and it's got like 45 likes, a lot of positive things. The discussion goes all over the place. A lot of positive comments that, we need to do this, we need to streamline, because it was a 2-part post. I said about streamlining the permitting process, a lot of positive things, and then the additional square footage. And then, of course, there were some not so positive comments. One of them, I almost ought to read it to you, but it was a negative. Somebody responded to a comment, it became, we're mansionization. You're going to pave over La Habra Heights. We don't want to be like West Hollywood. One guy told me, you're one of you people, he said, you people to me, are the ones that want to get rid of all the animals and turn this into West Hollywood. One fella actually told me that I should get out of town, that I should go live in another city that has, so, you get the whole gamut of people. There's the core group of people in La Habra Heights, and that they want to keep it rural, which I do also, but don't want any kind of bigger house or anything like that. And even I brought up property values, and one comment was that I don't care about my property value. So there's this group of people that don't ever want to see anything bigger, better, improved. Just keep it real rural, which this would not change that because we're not changing setbacks or anything like that. So I put it out there in the community, hoping. I invited people. Like my responses were very diplomatic, much more so than I usually am when they were insulting me. I told one guy, I said, if you ever, we should get together. Let's have a beer together. We might have more things in common than you know. The guy that told me I'm trying to run wildlife out, I told him, hey, I love wildlife. I've got a whole area in my house that I created with plants for butterflies. We have hummingbird feeders. I spend a lot of money every month. I buy about 100 pounds of bird seed every month for the bird feeders. And that's an exaggeration. I buy the bag in Costco, 25 pounds. We use a pound a week. So I've been tagged with this, you just want to pave over the Habra Heights, you hate nature, get out of town. So, and I was really, really hoping that we would have people here tonight. If they're so willing to insult me about how bad a person I am, come and tell me to my face. Give me your point of view. But it's kind of disappointing that there's really nobody here. So basically, then you should all know that when I was in Florida, Rafferty and Miss Hess, who's an attorney, I asked her to help me to go over the code, and she lined out things and stuff, because I wanted to present something to the commission, not just something, what's the right word? I wanted something specific that we could look at and agree or disagree on, and hopefully, if enough of us agree on the language, we could send that then to the city council. I'm not a big fan of dragging things out for months and months. That's why I asked Ms. Hess to, reword the ordinances, and that's in your packet. So with that, let's start the discussion. And Ms. Espinoza, did you read it? Okay. I'll start with you. I know you're going to be opposed to this. You voted against it. Can you tell us why you're against it?
I made this spreadsheet showing the different how the largest house size, what the largest house sizes would be based upon the size of the lot, and if there's a standards modification or not. And then I think you had originally mentioned you weren't touching the grading and hardscape, but the grading and hardscape are greatly affected because
that would change. It's in the chart when you input the numbers.
They're based on footprint.
Right.
So if you have a bigger footprint, you can do more grading and have more hardscape.
Right.
And then the city council had mentioned about making sure you take a look at the smaller lots. If someone has a 20,000 square foot lot, they're allowed 10,000 square feet of grading, and the 9,000 footprint would take up virtually all of that.
But can I stop you a second? If you have a smaller, this whole thing is based on 1 acre for now. That's what we've been discussing. If you have a smaller lot, the fact that it's smaller, your setbacks reduce the area where you could even build a house. So if you had a 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre, the house couldn't be that big because you just don't have the land to be able to build such a big house. But all the stuff that was done was based on 1 acre. If you want to get into 1/2 acre lot.
Well, I don't want to get into it. The council wanted us to get into it.
Yeah.
All right, then. So I think this, because you can have on a 2 acre lot, you'd have a 18,000 square foot single-story house, or you could have a 17,685 square foot two-story house square footage. And there's 3 categories for each segment. What the code allows now, and originally you had mentioned 2,000 square foot addition per acre. I had made the spreadsheet based on that, and then with the curveball of an extra 4,500 square feet, so I added in an extra line for each of them with that. And you're getting 30,000 square foot possible house on a 5-acre lot. They're just pretty extreme numbers. Then landscaping is going to be very important because they need to be screened. And then you mentioned animal keeping. I remembered that when the council did the SB9 code, they added in a requirement that I think was, Ralph, do you remember, it was like 200 square feet?
For, yeah, like animal area.
Yeah. So somewhere within the setback, you have 200 square feet that someone would be able to have animal keeping. They're not required to have an animal. It could be used for a garden, but it just wouldn't get lost in development. Then I would say with these huge houses, you would want no standards modifications for setback, grading, hardscape, building separation. And then as I asked the question, who were these people that want a 20,000 square foot house? Did someone submit plans, were turned down, or just did someone come in inquiring about it? Because I looked at the houses for sale. There's 28,000 houses for sale from roughly Santa Monica to Mexico. 28,000. There's 16 20 to 25,000 square foot houses of the 28,000, and there's 49 between 15 and 20,000 square feet. Then I was looking at some of the cities you mentioned, like Rancho Santa Fe. They have 2 houses for sale between 20 and 25,000 square feet, $14 million and $19 million. So I'm trying to understand what the demand is for these large houses. Are we doing something to satisfy demand that isn't even there? You know, because like we had that case of the one on Chota, the 9,000 square foot house for $2.5 million. And these people,
Well, that's a special house. Can I respond to some of your, are you done or?
sure,
you have more?
as long as I can respond.
I want to kind of, or else I'll forget what.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The fact of the matter is that on that list that Rafferty gave us about applications, I think the average house is 5,500 square feet. The average sales price up here is $1.3 million, $1.4 million. So you bring out this chart. Oh, wow, look, you can get a 32,000 square foot house. In the grand scheme of things, nobody's going to come into this city and build a 32,000 square foot house on 5 acres, because how many 5-acre parcels that are level enough to build a big house are there in the city? All I can think of maybe, what's that big top they call it? You know,
Flat top.
Flat top.
Flat top.
Flat top. So, and then on your 2-acre proposed site, 18,500. I haven't had a real chance to look at this.
Oh, yeah,
It was
I gave
just,
it to you.
so I can't. But in the real world that I live in, most people are not going to invest the money to build an 18,000 square foot house on 2 acres when it's hard to even sell a house for over $3 million. My son sold the one in Dorothea, and that sold for like 3.4 or something, that new modern house. And it had no yard, and I remember calling the developer one day. I met him at City Hall, and he showed me the house. and I heard about this lot going for sale that he could build a house. And I said, hey, you want to, I think my son was even going to list it. And he said, are you kidding me? He says, I can't run away from La Habra Heights fast enough. They had spent over $4 million. You're familiar with that one. I don't remember the fellow's name. They were Middle Eastern. Didn't they spend like
So Ray, can we stay on point?
Well,
I mean, this is a long meeting,
yeah.
and I think we should stay on the meeting.
Well, the point is
Well, that's
that
1800
nobody,
Dorothea.
he's saying people are going to build an 18,500 square foot house, and I'm saying the economics is not going to allow it. All I'm trying to do, I think it's very unfair to tell somebody that's got a second acre that you can build 1,500 square feet on their second acre. That's almost a taking of your land. I want to give people the flexibility to say, hey, maybe we can build homes that are worth $4 or $5 million because, I can build a little bigger home. I'm not asking for huge, things. You could always, put numbers to make it look so alarmist, but in the real world, nobody's going to come in here and build.
Well, these are the numbers that result from this proposal.
I understand
I think
that.
it should be reined back into the area where people are actually building or want to build. I mean, if you can build with this revision, 18,000 square foot house and 2 acres, and we don't think anyone's going to do that.
I have to look
Ours
at these numbers, see how you even came up with
Yeah,
this.
with the
anyway.
formulas up top.
Well, I think,
that's
this is, come on, you guys, this is just you go to the extreme on both things. And, that house that you're talking about sold for $2.5 million. It's because people who can afford a $3 or $4 million house don't want to live in this community because there's code enforcement. And it's not that they don't want to buy that house for $3 or $4 million. It's that they don't want to drive past all the other houses that they have to drive by in order to live there. That's the problem. That's why our property values are low. So I'm not even going to have this discussion with you. So, this chart, I understand what you do, Stephen, but let's go back to the real world with what this is really saying. My understanding was that this was really about, for the second acre, as with the gentleman that was here this evening, where you have 2 acres, you can build 7,500 on the first one, but only 1,500 is the addition for the second one. So we were trying to give people that have bigger lots a little more flexibility. And so to take it to the extreme and say someone can build a 30,000 square foot house on a 5 acre lot,
That isn't the extreme, that's what it
it's a waste
says.
of my time, Stephen.
It's a waste of time, I think, to be having this that allows a 18,000 or 32,000 square foot lot when no one's going to build it, it's not financially feasible, and we could just reduce the numbers to where it is you want to be. This isn't fantasy, this is what the proposal is.
Okay, so then put a cap on it. Come up with a solution. I mean, it's like, okay, so it says 1,500 to 4,500 square feet per acre. So you're trying to multiply that times 5 acres when there's how many 5 acre lots even in the whole city?
All right, well, don't look at the 5 acres. I just wanted to cover a range. Look at the 1.5.
So anyway, okay, so it is a matter of keeping the discussion moving forward. Come up with a solution rather than just a complaint. Okay? I'm solution driven. You want to point out all the things that are wrong with something, then what is acceptable to you? To say, okay, there's a cap at 10,000 square feet, even if it's 3 acres. Come up with a solution rather than just mythical problems.
Well, it's not mythical. I think you need to see what the reality is, and then you might be accepting of an
the
alternative.
reality is that nobody's going to build a 20,000 square foot house up here. That's the reality.
I totally agree.
Well, that's fine.
All right, and then on the spreadsheet Rafferty gave us, and looking at the change in the ministerial to 3,500 square foot footprint, And you mentioned the 1800 Dorothea, that's only 3291 footprint. I think I'm glad that had to go through a standards modification process. It wasn't just approved over the counter. Though the footprint wouldn't need a standards modification, but the height still would. The same thing with 3840 Hacienda, which is up on a spur road. That was only a 2,632 footprint, but that had issues where the neighbors were objecting to it because it was in the setbacks. And that also did and should have gone through the standards modification process. 1429 Lariata, that was the one, it was the water tank lot, came to the Planning Commission. That, I don't think, should have been ministerial, though it still would have had the height. 1111 Pinto came to us.
But Stephen, hold on. That house came to the Planning Commission.
It did, but it might not have.
We're not changing the setbacks. And
No,
did
no,
I
but
miss
this is
something in here?
the
Hold
footprint.
on. I'm asking a question. Please listen to me and then answer the question, yes or no. Does it say anything in here about changing the setbacks?
No, I'm looking at the footprint.
So, no. Does it say anything about changing the setbacks?
No.
Then don't bring up examples where they came because of the setback. That one on Riata, there's no way they could have built anything bigger because of the setbacks. So, I mean, Stephen, come on, stay on point
All right,
here.
okay, we'll go with 1111 Pinto, which also came to the Planning Commission, and 1911 Tuman, that was just over a 3650 footprint. Those all should have required standards modifications based upon the footprint. I think a 3,500 square foot footprint not needing a standards modification is too big. I understand the desire not to have people come in for small stuff, but 3,500 is too much.
Okay,
I think
well, we get it. You didn't vote for this last time.
I was going to give an
You're going to vote for it even
alternative
less.
of grow it to 2,000 square foot footprint from 1,500 to 2,000.
2,000. So you think, let me ask you, you buy a 2-acre lot and you can do the 75 or the 9,000 square foot footprint. You really think it's fair on your second acre to just be able to build 2,000 square feet?
No, I'm talking about the going from 1,500 to 3,500 square
You're
feet.
talking about the
on
ministerial?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it would be okay to go from 1,500 to 2,000. I think 3,500 is too much.
Okay. That's your opinion. And
Yep.
Ms. Hess?
We've already debated this amendment essentially at our last meeting and whether it should go forward or not. And we all voted in favor with the exception of Mr. Blagden. So I don't feel the need to go over the pros and cons of the amendment at this point again, because I think it's just rehashing. City Council has already taken a look at it, and it seems like they're in favor of, that they agree with us, that a change is advisable, or at least is something that they should consider. And they've asked us to come up with a red line version to send back to them. That's what we've attempted to do here. Ray and I met and talked about how we should draft this, and this is what we came up with. I think it's a great first stab, and I think we should send it up to City Council so that they can talk about it.
Okay, thank you. And, you did a real nice job. You made a revision I asked you for. Did you want to say anything further?
Thank you, Ms. Hess, for being the voice of reason. Now, I agree with you. I don't know how much debate we really need. We did do it, and from what I recall, it looks like the changes were made, and I would vote to move this forward to the City Council for them to look at it and modify it, or change it, or approve it, or deny it.
Okay. Mr. Lucas, what's your thoughts?
I appreciate the effort, but I think I agree with Commissioner Blandon. There's not enough bookends to this thing. It's just too open on the outside. So it went originally from a footprint and then to a square footage on the table for the first and second floors to all of a sudden just a footprint. And so if you look at this, if you went with the the 3,500 square foot footprint. Of the 26 projects listed here, 19 would have required a standard modification. If you jump up to the 9,000 square foot max allowable for administrative, none of these projects based on footprint would have come by the Planning Commission for approval, because they're all less than 9,000 square feet from a footprint perspective, right? So I don't think that there needs to be some cap on the square footage of the house at some point, that anything above X would require some type of Planning Commission approval or it gets moved up. I think there's too much missing just from a single column, footprint number for me to approve this.
One of the things that you should know is that the reason I'm kind of stuck on structural footprint as opposed to total square footage is because, coming back to the real world, if you try to build a two-story home in La Habra Heights, somebody is going to complain that you're blocking their view. So the 9,000 square foot is to allow people to build a single-story home, which in the past has been the wish of the city council and other people. So I'm trying to give some flexibility that if somebody can't build a two-story home because of the view blockage, down the street from me, Sepulveda, somebody's trying to build a two-story home now for about 25 years, and I think they just got approval, right? They had a neighbor that complained.
They're still working the issue with the neighbor.
Okay, I heard that it was approved. Somebody told me. So this lets somebody build a bigger ground floor home, and if they're lucky enough that they're not blocking somebody's view, maybe they can build a little bigger home. So, and why is this aversion to somebody builds a 12,000 square foot home? I remember like in the Patel home, 14,000 square feet. It was like the protest, unbelievable. People said, oh, we can see the house from the 91 freeway. I can barely find a house now with the landscaping grown in. So this is just built in, oh, a big house is bad. So anyway, so what would, you want to cap the limit on a size of a house? Is that what you're saying to me?
Or you would have some limits. So say it for, again, 6,000 square feet house, that would need a deviation from the city, right? Then after that, if an add-on and up to another 1,000 square feet, you can approve through and then, so same as the current process, there's a limit that requires no deviation, then it goes to our modification, then goes to the city, and then can go to Planning Commission and plus, so it's the same step that we currently have in that table. Mm-hmm. So you have two things in parallel. You have a footprint requirement and you have a square footage requirement, and they kind of go in parallel.
Okay, I'm not sure if I heard the answer to my question. Are you in favor of saying nobody can have a house bigger than X? Is that what would help you?
No, my concern is that right now you can build a huge home without any Planning Commission review, potentially. If there was a concern, right, you can build a 15,000 square foot home and it would likely not require Planning Commission review or approval. Versus at least having, again, no cap, at least running it by the Planning Commission, just having it express concerns or review it and have some feedback to it.
But you're saying a 15,000 square foot, one-story house that fits within the setbacks. Because if it's 2 stories, it's going to go over in height and have to come to the Planning Commission. If it's too close to the setbacks, then it's going to have to come to the Planning Commission. So,
well, it doesn't have to, because if your footprint's 9,000 square feet, right? You're saying the footprint's up to 9,000, and then you could expand it by 2,000, so 11,000 square foot footprint. Still wouldn't come to us yet, right? It's still under the city, and then the second story could be based on that, what, 80%, whatever that figure is. So now you're up at, so again.
No, it would come to the Planning Commission if you had a 2-story.
Because of height, it would come to the Planning Commission.
Right.
But how do you know it's going to be, how would you know it's above the height?
Only if it exceeded the 30-foot height.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know that. That's out, if it did, it would come here. That's like kind of what you're saying to Mr. Blindon was that setbacks and things, he would come here for that modification, right? This is purely the square footage and footprint, and these are things that would be required, under these two criteria. But again, yeah, there's height, there's setbacks, there's other things that would still arise and maybe need planning commission approval.
So where would you put that limit?
What's that?
For if you're saying basically that you would like to have a certain limit of square footage allowable, and then anything beyond that has to be subject to planning commission review, where would you put that cutoff?
As far as like square footage or something?
Right, yeah.
I mean, just looking at these figures, like it could be the living square footage versus the total square footage, because I think the footprint kind of covers all the other, buildings that could be ADU and whatever else, garage or whatever else it could be. So if you said, like for living square footage, 6,000 square feet, would be, approved, without requiring a center modification. And then anything, say, above that by 1,000 or 2,000 square feet could be approved by the city. Then we have another, say, 5,000 beyond that. So something similar to what you have on the footprint with the 2,000, 5,000, but just apply that to the square footage, as well. But maybe you're set at 6,000 square feet is that original set point.
Keep the staff level approval at a lower bar.
Yes.
And then a lower bar for staff level approval, and then give it a much larger band from that square footage limit to what like the planning commission's cap would be. So sort of anything over that, call it like 6,000 square feet, would trigger planning commission review and approval, and not a staff level review and approval for.
Or you can approve up to 1,000 square feet more, like currently for the current one, right? The current policy.
So keep a smaller set of square footage limit, not this is your maximum, but at this square footage limit is what you can do. Like right now, 7,500 square feet is that limit. So 7,500 square feet, which is a good amount of square footage. That's not anything to like laugh at. I mean, 7,500 square foot is a large structure. So that could bump to 8,000 square feet. Anything above that would then require planning commission approval. And say we use this formula and kind of like we have the extreme end of it here on, Commissioner Blackton kind of gave us, this is what the max would be. That is the bracket that is in the planning commission territory where commission could review and approve those aspects to it. It's kind of where you're looking at maybe a lower bar for a staff level approval and a higher, like a much larger band for planning commission approval. Because today, right now,
similar to the proposal, right? There's a smaller band for staff approval, and there's a larger band for planning commission approval.
Yeah. Because today, a lot of like new homes can be approved at a staff level, and a lot of times people will work those numbers and move everything to keep it at a staff level and not go through like the planning commission public hearing process. It just takes additional time. There's 5 of you to make a decision, and those aspects that weigh into it. So some people will make sure to keep at a staff level limit and not move into a planning commission territory. That could be something that could be put into the code, written that way, where over a certain limit, it would automatically go to the planning commission. It wouldn't necessarily be just at a staff level to approve, which I think is kind of where you're looking at. They set that bar where staff's limit is a little lower than what the planning commission has a much larger bandwidth to play with as far as square footage, because you're going to all look at it critically, take into neighbors' considerations, look at all of those aspects. It's a more public, open approval process than like staff, me approving it.
A question for you on this chart. I notice you don't have, if anybody needed to get a standards modification for height, is anything over 16 foot, you have to go a standards modification. So that's not on this. That right there makes a lot of people get a standards mod, because you build a house, nowadays they're building 9, 10 foot ceilings, let's say, or you might have a little raised entryway. By the time you put your roof, it's very hard to build a house with a roof that's under 16 feet. Wouldn't you say, Rafferty? I mean, basically everybody goes through standards modification to get a house approved.
Our code is written and developed to sort of move projects through the standard modification process, which, that again, like as we heard from Commissioner Brooks, is a much longer, more involved, more detail-oriented process than someone doing a small little addition that is less than 1,500 square feet, less than 16 feet in height, meets all the setback requirements. It's not going to be as potentially impactful to neighbors as something larger. Here, height-wise, we also got to take into effect the way we measure height. We'll measure from either the lowest finish grade or the natural grade. So sometimes here that's going to be where they're cutting in a lower level. If there's a bit of fill to it, we're taking it from wherever the natural grade was, so that will add to that height limit. But pretty much our code is kind of developed to sort of drive into the standards modification process. So it's a more detailed review, require story polls and notice to neighbors for a more open public aspect to the development of projects. But here, I didn't include like height and setbacks because on this one, the only one that does not have a height limit to it that is in there. Probably the only one is going to be the 1819 El Travicia. It's a small single-story house that was mostly built for them to be able to keep the horses at the property. Pretty much everything else on this list is 2 stories or larger. I mean, the one at 1900 Tuman is single-story, but it does have a higher entryway and vaulted ceilings and a basement area in it that triggers those height requirements.
Right. So, Commissioner Hess, so I think what he's saying, what I'm interpreting, even if we went with a bigger square footage, just the height is going to trigger them having to get a standards modification, which is a whole nother level of review. I've done many of them. It involves story polls. It involves notifying every neighbor within 500 feet of the exterior property line, which touches a lot of homes. Like I thought where I'm at, wouldn't be that many homes, and it was like 26 people that we had to notify that I wanted to build a garage. And the garage, the height was, more than 16 feet, and I was getting a setback, I think 15 feet. So go back to the real world, most houses are gonna have to go through a standards modification no matter if we increase this. So I'm looking for a suggestion.
If I can make one, I think kind of like where Commissioner Lucas is going to is that increase the footprint, increase the square footages, but not at a straight ministerial level where it's going to be staff level approval. Put a cap at what can be approved at a staff level, maybe above what we currently have, but not at the very large end of it, and make that aspect of it commission approved. So those projects that are potentially going to be larger would come to the commission for approval and not be approved at a staff level. I think is that kind of might satisfy some of your thoughts or concerns. So you're not necessarily concerned that potentially somebody could have a 30,000 square foot house, but it's that somebody having a 30,000 square foot house that's approved by staff.
Yeah, all of a sudden it gets built, and it's like, well, who approved that? That should have, I would hope, come by the planning commission. Yeah, it might have come by for setbacks or height or something else, but still, this is in there just in case. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't have this in there just to protect yourself. Being that that's what the current policy is, right? It's based on square footage of the first and second floors, and now we're just getting rid of that entire thing and basing it on footprint.
Okay, so are you saying then on this discussion draft, and help me with this, Ms. Hess, where it says the city manager may approve a standards modification authorizing an increase of up to 2,000 feet, you want to reduce that to 1,000 feet? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, there's two things, because all this is talking about footprint size. It has nothing to do with square footage of the livable space. So you're talking two things. The existing policy is, there's two things. The one thing is footprints, 1,500 square feet, and then you go to table 721, and that's all square footage of the first and second, it's livable space, right? It's no longer footprint.
No, 721 is structural footprint.
No, but you're changing that to that. The original language isn't that. It's based on square footage of the home.
Yeah. It becomes structural footprint, yes.
which is fine, but in parallel, there still needs to be a square footage limitation as well.
So
yeah.
I
We
go
could do
back
that. I
again.
mean, basically, it's just saying, like, keep everything that we have in here, but just put a limitation on overall square footage of just of the living structure, right? Not of all the accessory structures as well.
Yeah, the primary home.
Just for the primary
Oh, the
resident, right?
Because all the accessory would still be covered under the footprint.
Yeah. So
Side of
keep all this footprint language essentially, and then just say, in addition to this, we're going to say that there has to be some kind of a limitation on how much staff can approve for the square footage of
Yes.
livable space. Anything above that can happen. It just has to go to Planning Commission.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, and the number that you're suggesting for the livable space being approved by staff would be 6,000 square feet, and anything above that would have to be approved by Planning Commission.
Or it would be kind of similar, the 0 to 1 acre would be the 6,000 square foot max, right? And then kind of similar to what you currently have, you can approve up to 1,000 more square feet. So you can keep that in there. And then Planning Commission, anything above that would be Planning Commission approval.
Up to any max? Is that, are you putting a max on that? I just want to know what your recommendation is.
Well, if you were consistent with the structural or the footprint, it could be up to 5,000 square feet. So in that case, we can approve up to 12,000 square feet for livable space, and that's just for the 1 acre, and then you'd have your multiplying factor. I would keep the existing one, the 7,500 times the 1.5 based on acreage. That could get you up to potentially like 15,000 square feet, you know, if it was like a 3-acre home or something like that, or a 3-acre parcel for.
What are you talking about times 1.5?
In the formula exhibit 7-21, where we factor in based off the size of the property, where you kick in your additional square footage per acre.
You're talking about
So you're
0 to
saying
1 acre.
Or the 1,500, times the 1,500.
You're saying keep it 1,500, not go to 4,500?
Not for the square footage of the home.
Okay, 6,000 square feet for the house, an additional 1,000 square feet discretionary with staff,
Yes.
and then an additional 1,500 square feet discretionary with Planning Commission times 1.5 for anything over 1 acre.
No, it would be similar to what is currently there, where, so it's 6,000, and then 1,000 discretionary for staff.
Mm-hmm.
And then similar to what you're saying for the footprint, you know, we could approve up to a 5,000 additional square feet. So if the home was, you know, and for 1 acre, the max would be 12,000 square feet.
And where's the 12,000 coming from?
Sorry, it would be 11,000. Because 6,000 is what would be in Exhibit 721, then we can approve up to 5,000 more, and then plus the equation right there.
For larger than an acre.
For greater than 1 acre.
So for 1 acre, you're saying 11,000 square feet
Of the primary unit housing
the square footage,
square footage.
and the footprint would be,
The footprint would be what it currently is, what's proposed.
the 9,000?
Yes.
You mean what it currently is, the proposal, or
The
what it
proposal,
is now?
The proposal.
Okay.
All right, I can take a stab at including this and then coming back to the next meeting if you guys want.
Or just any other ideas that would work as well. Again, I'm just thinking what would work, you know, for myself, but it's any other ideas are more than welcome.
You think you can write it up now, or you want to bring it back?
I can't do it right now, but I will like to do it next time.
Okay, I was hoping that this could be a simple thing. It looks like we're back to complicating it again.
Not complicating, it's just figuring it out.
Just
Now,
putting
do you want a ceiling on the planning commission? Was that staff, 12,000 square feet? 11,000?
No, 6, yeah, 6 plus 1,000.
So 6,000 staff level, 1,000 standard mod at admin, so it basically gets us to 7,000.
Okay.
And then above that would
12,000
be
planning
PC.
commission.
Okay, I'll try to come up with a draft, and Jim, I'll probably just call you or email you and make sure that I have it correctly based on what we discussed tonight, and then we'll present it next time.
Okay, any other comments on this?
Did we want to put in the animal keeping space, 200 square feet?
No, that's one thing at a time. Yeah, I don't want to get into that. The pens have to be away from the property line, 25 feet, right? You know, I don't want to change any of that.
No, it's not changing it. It's just having that be in there and not lost, the same as they did with SB 9.
So tell her what you want exactly, that she could write it up.
I
The animal-
I don't think one has to do anything
No.
with the other.
No? I know, how did we get into animal keeping now?
Well, because you don't want, if you want to follow the general plan, which encourage animal keeping, when the council did SB 9, they added in 200 square feet, has to be somewhere on the lot, regardless of the SB 9. So what would be saying is just keep it consistent across the code, and there needs to be 200 square feet.
I have to look that up, I'm not real familiar with that. So, anyway, okay, anything else? Let's move on, okay, we don't have any public comments, I see. Staff comments,
No additional comments tonight.
okay. Any planning commission comments? I think, yeah,
Yeah, too bad Elizabeth's not here. I just wanted to give alternative viewpoint. Commissioner Brooks mentioned about perk tests and fault finding as being unnecessary in the early stage. I've been looking at plans and following things for 28 years, and some of those things weren't required in the beginning. Perk tests, I think there's a house now under review that they did the perk test, didn't perk. What's the sense of going through having your house plans approved if the lot doesn't perk? And then with the fault, if you're in the zone and it shows a fault going through the property, it makes sense to find the fault so you know where you can put the house. They think there was one on 1798 Tillman that had a fault line going through. It was actually 2 fault lines. And when they took the faults into consideration, they put the house in a different place. So in this city, things like that should be done up front, not later. And that's all I have for comment.
I totally disagree with you, but for many reasons, but it's late in the
I
day.
think instead of looking at plans, Mr. Blagden, you should become a developer and come into the real world.
Okay, meeting adjourned.